After breaking off the engagement, I got married to a stunning female CEO. After Song Yuan was dumped, he turned around and married a stunning female CEO. The originally scheduled wedding was held as usual, but the bride was replaced. On the wedding day, his ex-girlfriend, who knew the truth, came to him and begged for reconciliation. Song Yuan embraced his new wife and felt helpless when he saw his ex-girlfriend crying. "Miss, you were the one who broke up with me. Why are you crying on my wedding day?" Chapter 1, You're a Good Person. Song Yuan never expected that, with just 10 days left until the wedding, his fiancée, Lin Shuiyao, would suddenly ask to cancel the marriage. Song Yuan had been preparing for the wedding for a long time, personally writing hundreds of invitations. He wanted to give her a romantic and unforgettable ceremony. After 3 years of a loving relationship, they had finally reached this point, and he was both excited and full of expectations. But at the moment Lin Shuiyao proposed breaking off the engagement, he was stunned. For the past 3 years, Song Yuan had invested all his time, energy, and money into Lin Shuiyao. He paid for her father's medical bills, supported her brother through school, and even helped her family build a house. He had almost drained his savings, never hesitating to spend both money and effort. "Song Yuan, you're a good person, but I don't want to continue with you. Xiao Nianchen is back, and I don't want to leave any regrets in my life." "Xiao Nianchen?" Song Yuan let out a low scoff. He knew Lin Shuiyao had a first love, and he thought that as long as he treated her well enough, he could win her heart. But it turned out that after 3 years of love, it still couldn't compete with a sudden return. The memories of the past 3 years hit him like 1,000 tiny needles, painful and relentless. They had shared everything, and every corner of their room held traces of their affection. 3 years, even a small pet would develop feelings, let alone a human being. Song Yuan's heart was unsettled, but his face remained calm. He wouldn't beg her to stay. A woman who had changed her mind was nothing but a piece of dirty cloth to him, worthless. But Lin Shuiyao, seeing his silence, misunderstood and thought he couldn't bear the blow. She was afraid he would start to beg her. "Song Yuan, I'm really sorry. I admit you've taken great care of me in life, but marriage isn't a joke, and love can't fill an empty stomach." She glanced at the table, where Song Yuan had prepared a feast for her, and the birthday cake he had set aside, waiting to light the candles when she returned. With a firm heart, she continued. "Today, I turn 25. It's the age where I can have whatever I want. I don't want to live an ordinary life with you. Xiao Nianchen just bought a luxury apartment in the CBD. It's something you'd never achieve even if you spent your whole life coding and banging on a keyboard. A small 2-bedroom apartment versus a spacious penthouse in the city center, I choose the latter. Let us part on good terms. To avoid any misunderstandings, let us not contact each other again." She made everything clear, blunt and practical. It was obvious she was leaving him because he was poor and now wanted to aim higher. Song Yuan let out a low laugh and, in front of Lin Shuiyao, blocked her on his phone. Then, goodbye. He walked to the entryway to change his shoes, but Lin Shuiyao suddenly called out to him. "Song Yuan, don't you have anything to say? Don't you have any questions?" Song Yuan paused for a moment, then simply said, "Happy birthday," before opening the door and leaving swiftly. Lin Shuiyao stood in the empty living room, lost in silence for a long time, feeling a bit uneasy. He really left. Lin Shuiyao started to doubt that Song Yuan had ever truly loved her. Perhaps everything before had been an act. That's why, when she proposed breaking up, he remained so calm. This was completely different from what she had expected. She had thought Song Yuan would hold on to her, begging with red eyes for her not to leave, or even kneel to ask for another chance. If that had happened, she might have considered staying another day. But he just left, without even a single word of pleading. What a jerk! Lin Shuiyao cursed in her heart, silently betting that within 3 days, he would definitely come back begging. After all, so many invitations had already been sent out, and all their friends knew their wedding was just a week away. Men care about their pride, and Song Yuan was no exception. Being dumped before their wedding would be too embarrassing. Lin Shuiyao felt a complicated discomfort in her heart. She dialed her best friend's number. "Hey, I broke up with Song Yuan, and he didn't even try to stop me, he just left without a word." On the other end of the line, her friend shouted, "What? Song Yuan dared to break up with you? I told you, men are the most calculating creatures. If you want his money, spend it freely. The more he spends on you, the more he will value you. Why did you try to save him money? Lin Shuiyao was stunned for a moment. Was this why Song Yuan left so easily? Because she had spent enough, and that's why he didn't feel as reluctant to part with her. Her friend made a good point, though. Should I have him give me his salary each month as a love fund? Her friend scoffed, of course. He only gives you a few thousand a month, and you're still playing the martyr? Which man doesn't spend money in a relationship? He is taking advantage of you. And how much did he give you for a breakup fee? Does that house even have your name on it? Lin Shuiyao fell silent. She should have consulted her friend before breaking up with him. Was it too late to ask for a breakup fee now? Her mind was a mess. She never thought things through and had been so eager to cut ties quickly, worried Song Yuan would drag things on. Stop cursing. The house is under both of our names. He said before that the place was temporary and that we would upgrade to a bigger one later. This one is for my brother's wedding. Her friend sighed, well, it's not all bad. You're too naive. In relationships, you have to be more realistic. A fool like you will get scammed by men sooner or later. But Song Yuan, that dog, will definitely come back in less than 3 days. When he does, take him to get a notarization and have his name removed from the property title. Leave only your name. Lin Shuiyao hung up the phone, deep in thought. She needed to talk to Song Yuan about this. On the other side, Song Yuan called his friend, Lu Kai, to meet him at a bar. Song Yuan was the type of person who could let go easily. Since it was over, he would make sure everything was settled, and if there was anything he could take back, he would. Song Yuan worked as the technical director at a large internet company, with a decent income by national standards, but all the money he earned in the past few years had been spent on Lin Shuiyao. His monthly salary, along with quarterly and year-end bonuses, was nearly all used up by her. Every month, it was spent without a penny left. Not only that, but he had sold his family's ancestral house for 3 million, using most of it to pay for his father's medical bills and to build a house for his family, with the rest spent on luxury bags, jewelry, and high-end cosmetics for Lin Shuiyao. The only thing he had left was the house they currently lived in. I remember your aunt wanted to buy a house at Yuehu Bay. I'm planning to sell mine, 5% below market price. Want to take her to see it? Lu Kai was surprised. You're planning to move? I thought you said you were going to keep that place for your brother's wedding? What made you change your mind? Song Yuan stiffened. I'm leaving it for him. Screw that. We broke up. Lu Kai was shocked and speechless for a while. Everyone knew how much Song Yuan adored Lin Shuiyao. Would he really be willing to break up? Come on, stop messing around, man. When you get home, you'll probably be the one needing to beg her. Song Yuan's expression was serious, unlike someone joking, and Lu Kai began to realize. Wait, you really broke up with her? Isn't her name on the house deed? Song Yuan downed his drink and calmly said, her name is on the deed, but this is my premarital property. I have proof of the money I spent to buy it, and she didn't contribute a single penny. The house has nothing to do with her. Well, that is easy then. Send me the floor plan. Lu Kai's eyes lit up. This would be interesting. Lin Shuiyao probably already considered the house as her own. If she found out Song Yuan was selling it, would she cry her eyes out? Chapter 2, The Mysterious Beauty Riding on Him. Lu Kai was a man of action. After making a phone call to his aunt, who was excited to hear about the property being sold below market price and on the best floor of the building, she immediately scheduled to see the place the next day. Song Yuan checked his work schedule. He had a project going live in the afternoon, but he could spare an hour in the morning to accompany Lu Kai's aunt to view the property. He set the time for 10 a.m. Lu Kai reassured him, all right, buddy, drink less and focus on your career. But what about your wedding? You've been preparing for it for so long. What are you going to do now? All of our classmates got your invitation. How do you plan to wrap things up? Song Yuan exhaled heavily. It wasn't just classmates, he had sent invitations to all his relatives and friends. His parents had even prepared the bride price and jewelry. How could he end this? He couldn't call off the wedding. Song Yuan muttered, the wedding is still on. The bride will just be someone else. That night, after Lu Kai left, Song Yuan drank alone until the early morning. Watching the seductive figures in the dance floor, he wondered where he would find a woman to marry in the next week. He drank too much and fell asleep in a booth. When he woke up, he was lying in a hotel bed, and there was a half-naked, cold beauty sitting on top of him. Song Yuan nearly had a heart attack. What the hell happened? He just had a drink. How did this happen? Rubbing his aching temples, he opened his eyes and confirmed that it wasn't a dream. A stunning woman with an alluring figure and beautiful face was straddling him, haphazardly tugging at his belt. Her skin was fair and delicate, and her eyes were bright and captivating, exuding a cold charm under the dim light, unknowingly luring him in. She was quite proactive, yet seemed inexperienced, unable to even unclip a simple belt buckle. After a few moments of frustration, her tone turned forceful. "I'll give you 10 seconds. Take off the case shirt yourself." Song Yuan was taken aback by her words. How could this be? He had principles. Seeing he didn't move, she explained, "I was framed and ate something unclean. Help me this one time, and I will take responsibility. Otherwise, the drug will kill me." Song Yuan had been drinking and his mind was slower than usual. Before he could respond, the woman's soft, fragrant lips pressed against his, and her little hands slid down his abs. Song Yuan felt her wandering hand, a tingling sensation shooting up his spine. A wild night. The next morning, Song Yuan was woken by an alarm clock. Rubbing his heavy eyelids, he felt something fall on his face. He sat up to find an exquisite jade earring and a note with elegant handwriting. "I've left already, but I'll contact you if anything comes up. The room is paid for. Good morning, Tilda." Song Yuan recalled the chaos of last night and hurriedly jumped up from the bed, but the woman had already disappeared. The scratches on his body indicated how intense last night had been. He remembered the slippery sensation of her skin, and his ears turned red with the thought. Song Yuan froze when he saw the marks on the bedspread. Turns out, it was her first time. If he had known, he wouldn't have been so rough. After lying there for a while, Song Yuan received an email. "Dear Hacker James, this is the Information Security Department of Country M. We sincerely invite you to join us. Feel free to state your conditions." Song Yuan ignored it and logged out of his email. He was a world-class hacker, specializing in attacking websites of foreign companies he disliked. His identity was secret, so he had no idea how they had found his email. But no matter how great the offer, he would never accept. He loved his country. Meanwhile, in the conference room of the GU Corporation, the woman was wearing a turtleneck, a fresh love bite visible just below her neck from last night. The circle of executives around the table looked dejected. "President GU, it seems that only top hacker James can help us design a firewall. The opposing company is pulling out all the stops against us." Facing the executives, the woman exuded a powerful aura. "I'll give you 1 day to contact hacker James and bring him to the company. The first one to make contact gets a cash reward of 1 million. Song Yuan had a brief rest before heading out. By the time he returned to Yuehubei, it was just 10 a.m. Lu Kai's aunt had been touring the neighborhood for a while. She was very pleased with the area, especially since the community had all the necessary amenities and was in a dual school district with a subway just a few hundred meters away. "Song, are you selling the house so quickly because you found a better one?" "The new place hasn't been found yet, so I'll sell this one first." After some casual conversation, Song Yuan took his aunt upstairs. Lin Shuiyao had already left for work, so their house was empty. They toured the house, and his aunt was satisfied with both the layout and the price. She decided right then and there to buy it. "Song, I'll transfer you a deposit of 20,000 yuan. I'll prepare the rest of the money and come back in 3 days to finalize the deal." Song Yuan hadn't expected the sale to go so smoothly. He accepted the money and exchanged phone numbers with Lu Kai's aunt, agreeing to finalize everything in 3 days. After sending Lu Kai's aunt off, Song Yuan tidied up the house, packing his clothes into a suitcase. He went over to Lin Shuiyao's vanity, took off the watch she had given him for his birthday, and placed it on the table. This watch had cost over 1,000 yuan and was the most precious gift he had received in the past 3 years. Now, it was time to return it to its rightful owner. His eye swept over the expensive cosmetics on the table. Just one small bottle of cream cost for digits, all bought with his money. Song Yuan smiled bitterly. From the start, this relationship had never been equal. A marriage with such an imbalance in giving would have problems eventually. At least the marriage hadn't happened yet, there was still time. Though it pained him, he was grateful that she hadn't married him. Remembering that his salary and credit card were still with Lin Shuiyao, he immediately changed the passwords. Song Yuan opened WeChat and removed Lin Shuiyao from the blacklist. He typed a message and sent it. Lin Shuiyao, I've sold the house. Please pack your things and move out within 3 days. On the other side, Lin Shuiyao was at work, sorting through some documents and preparing resumes for printing. She worked in the secretarial department of GU Corporation. Although her salary wasn't high, the company ranked among the top 500 in the world, and working at such a large-scale company was her pride. She had been busy all morning and hadn't had a chance to check her phone. When the phone rang, it was a call from an LV store clerk. Smiling, she picked it up. Miss Lin, the bag you ordered is here. It's waiting for you. When can you come to pick it up? Lin Shuiyao's eyes lit up. I'll come by at noon. The GU Corporation building and the LV store were just across the street. Finally, at noon, Lin Shuiyao rushed to the store without even eating lunch. She had been waiting for this bag for a long time. Today was the 10th of September, the day Song Yuan received his quarterly bonus and salary. She had told the clerk to notify her as soon as the bag was in stock. When she finally got her hands on the bag, she couldn't stop admiring it. This was her dream bag. If Song Yuan earned more, she would have bought it a long time ago. But since he didn't, she had to wait for 3 months, just until his bonus came through. The clerk processed her order. Miss Lin, this bag is priced at 89,999. Please follow me to make the payment. Ecstatic, Lin Shuiyao took out Song Yuan's salary card. Charge it. She tapped the card on the machine, entered the password, and the machine displayed an error, password incorrect. Please try again. Lin Shuiyao froze for a moment. Incorrect password. She tried again, but the same error appeared. Furrowing her brows, Lin Shuiyao thought, all of Song Yuan's passwords are set to my birthday. There shouldn't be any mistake. Is it a bug in your machine? Can you switch to another one? Chapter 3, 30 million to buy his game. The sales assistant's face slightly changed. The machine had just been used by another customer and surely wouldn't malfunction. Considering that Lin Shuiyao was a regular customer, almost buying a new bag every month, she logically shouldn't be unable to afford this one. She grabbed another machine and swiped the card again. Miss Lin, could you please try entering your password again? Lin Shuiyao carefully re-entered her birthday. This time, to avoid any mistakes, she pressed each number slowly and deliberately. After confirming, the machine again displayed an error message, incorrect password. The sales assistant kindly suggested, Miss Lin, would you like to try a different card? If this continues, your card might get locked. Lin Shuiyao touched her wallet. Over the years with Song Yuan, she had spent money recklessly and had completely forgotten that her monthly salary was only 6,500 yuan. In this city where every inch of land was precious, she couldn't even afford a decent apartment, let alone shop at a luxury mall like this and be a VIP at an LV store. Lin Shuiyao felt incredibly embarrassed under the sales assistant's gaze. She wished she could vanish into thin air. At the same time, her resentment towards Song Yuan grew. He must have changed the password without telling her. It seemed like everyone in the store was staring at her. Their eyes seemed to silently mock her. Look at that poor girl, no money, yet she dares to shop at LV. She didn't even bother to look at herself in the mirror first. Song Yuan had made her lose face today, badly. Lin Shuiyao silently vowed that when Song Yuan came begging for reconciliation, she wouldn't forgive him so easily. On WeChat, the familiar profile picture popped up again, and Song Yuan sent her a message. Lin Shuiyao coldly snorted and deleted the message without even reading it. Wasn't he the one who blocked her so decisively yesterday? Why was he messaging her today? She wanted Song Yuan to know that she wasn't the type of girl who could be easily won back, nor was she someone who would reply just because he sent a message. He had to pay the price. On the other side, Song Yuan was also engulfed in endless anxiety. The project at his company was going live in the afternoon, and everything was progressing smoothly so far. As the director, he had to oversee the final risk control. But his subordinates were reliable and diligent, so the work pressure wasn't what bothered him. What was truly causing him stress was the wedding he had been preparing for over the last 6 months. The wedding was just 9 days away, and every day he received congratulations from relatives, friends, and classmates on WeChat. In these 9 days, where could he find a bride? He couldn't just rent one, could he? In a desperate situation, it might just be a last resort. The phone rang, pulling Song Yuan back to reality. It was a call from Lu Kai. "Old Song, the game demo we developed together has caught the eye of the top domestic game company, Chiue. They want to buy our original code and game ideas for 30 million. This is such a big deal, I can't decide it on my own. How about we meet tonight and discuss it?" Song Yuan's heart skipped a beat. 30 million. For ordinary people, 30 million was no small sum. It could easily buy the large penthouse in the CBD that Lin Shuya mentioned. But his ambition went far beyond 30 million. His life goals weren't just about having a wife, kids, and a warm home. From the design to development, from the architecture to the final testing and bug fixing, every single part of the game, every algorithm, was created by him and Lu Kai. The effort they put into it couldn't be measured by money. He wanted to make this game big, constantly injecting new gameplay, and making it well known among gamers. Song Yuan replied to Lu Kai, "Let's meet at 7 at the usual place." After work, Song Yuan went straight to the bar from the previous night. Lu Kai was delayed by traffic, so Song Yuan ordered 2 drinks and sat in the same booth as last night. Some fragmented memories from last night flashed through his mind. Yesterday, after drinking too much, he had staggered to the restroom, and then what happened afterward? Song Yuan took the pair of earrings from his jacket pocket. The delicate texture was smooth to the touch, warm, made of fine mutton fat jade. Song Yuan remembered that his grandmother had a similar pair, passed down through the generations, although not in as good a condition. A collector had once offered 7 figures to buy them. As he studied the earrings, he wondered about the identity of the woman from last night. Who was she to have casually given away such valuable earrings? Unaware of the 2 women not far from him, Lin Shuiyao and her friend Xiao Shi walked into the bar and sat in a booth across the aisle. The moment Lin Shuiyao entered, her eyes immediately caught sight of Song Yuan. He was holding a pair of exquisite earrings. Xiao Shi nudged her with her elbow. "Yao Yao, don't forgive him so easily. Men always think they can get away with just giving you some jewelry or gifts. You should get used to him being nice to you. If you forgive him too quickly, he'll think you're easy to please and won't value you." Lin Shuiyao snorted. "I won't forgive him this time. He's gone too far. Giving gifts like this is too cheap for him." Xiao Shi highly agreed. "Wait until he comes over to talk to you. Don't pay him any attention. Keep him hanging." "I'm thinking the same." Lin Shuiyao and Xiao Shi each ordered a drink, chatting about women's topics. While Lin Shuiyao appeared to be chatting, she kept glancing at Song Yuan's booth every few seconds. From a distance, she could see him studying the earrings. She had to admit, Song Yuan had finally chosen something with good taste. She really liked those earrings, but something about them seemed familiar. Where had she seen them before? Suddenly, an image popped into her mind. Weren't those the same earrings worn by the female CEO of the GU Group, the ruthless devil of the business world? She had just been scolded by that very CEO 2 days ago. She couldn't be mistaken. Lin Shuiyao felt a surge of joy. The earrings, the same as the female CEO's, must be expensive. It seemed like Song Yuan was really making an effort to win her back, perhaps even spent all his private savings. Her feelings started to shift. If Song Yuan came over to talk to her, she might just give him a smile in return. On the other side, Song Yuan didn't notice the 2 women watching him. Lu Kai arrived half an hour late. "Old Song, what do you think? 30 million is no small amount, but do we want 30 million or the game?" Song Yuan had already thought it through at the office. "Lu Kai, I don't want to sell. Let us register a game company together, recruit a few capable juniors, and make it big." Lu Kai chuckled and extended his fist. The 2 of them bumped fists. "That's what I was thinking. I'll contact Professor Zhang and see if he's free this weekend. We can visit him and ask him to recommend a few people." Song Yuan nodded. "It's been a while since I saw him. I do miss him." The 2 talked a bit more about the game before parting ways. As Song Yuan passed by the booth where Lin Shuiyao and her friend sat, he suddenly noticed her. His expression turned cold, and he walked straight ahead without even glancing at her, treating her like a complete stranger. The two women watched in astonishment as he left the bar. Chapter for the woman that night said she would be responsible for him. Xiao Shi snorted. What's going on? Is Song Yuan blind? He waited for a whole night and he left without an apology. Lin Shuya was angry and embarrassed. She thought he would come to apologize and she even thought of her lines, but he turned a blind eye to her. She was so angry that she couldn't speak and her face turned pale. Xiao Shi comforted her. Yao Yao, hold on. This is just a stinky man's way of playing hard to get. If you bow your head first, you will lose. Lin Shuya encouraged herself in her heart, yes, never give in. Based on her understanding of Song Yuan, he would come back and ask for reconciliation within 3 days. Even though she thought so in her heart, she was still very angry and drank a few more glasses of wine. When I returned to Yuehubei, I completely forgot about Song Yuan moving away. Lin Shuya returned home, kicked off her shoes and collapsed on the sofa. Song Yuan, my feet hurt, can you massage them for me? After she finished talking for a long time, no one came. Her patience was running out, and her voice became a few degrees higher. Song Yuan, are you deaf? My feet hurt. Still no one responded after she finished speaking. Lin Shuya kicked the sofa angrily and got up and walked towards the bedroom. I opened the bedroom door and found that the lights were off and Song Yuan was not there. On her dressing table was Song Yuan's watch, a watch he never took off except when taking a bath. Lin Shuya rubbed her confused head and suddenly remembered that she and Song Yuan had broken up and he moved out of this house. The closet was half empty. Song Yuan took away his things and left the watch she had given him. Lin Shuya looked at the empty house and suddenly felt a little sore in her nose. Song Yuan usually obeyed her orders and came whenever she called, but now when they met in the bar, he pretended to be a stranger and ignored her. The huge psychological gap made it difficult for her to accept it for a while. What a heartless man, let us see how long he can last. Lin Shuya wiped away her tears, feeling certain that Song Yuan might be hiding somewhere crying. He was a very face-conscious person, and he must be feeling 100 times worse than she was. It was indeed a bit difficult for him to ask for forgiveness in a public place like a bar. Lin Shuya tried to make up for Song Yuan in her heart, but at the same time she thought of her white moonlight Xiao Nianchen. He had returned to China for several days and they hadn't met yet. Lin Shuya immediately picked up her phone and called Xiao Nianchen. Brother Nianchen, when are you free to have dinner with us? The voice on the other end of the phone sounded a bit tired. I'm really busy these days, and I only have time at night. Where are you? I'll pick you up and bring you to my house. Lin Shuya hesitated. It was true that she liked Xiao Nianchen, but she couldn't be completely defenseless towards him. She was not a clear-headed and foolish college student. You can imagine what will happen if you go to a single man's house late at night. After having a failed relationship, she won't let herself lose her virginity so easily again. Even if the man in front of her is Xiao Nianchen, she has to show some sincerity if he wants to sleep with her. Brother Nianchen, I'm a little sleepy, let's do it another day. After hanging up the phone, Xiao Nianchen transferred 520 yuan to her through WeChat and took a short video of his home and sent it to her. Xiao Nianchen, good night, I'll pick you up after get off work tomorrow. Do you want to see your new home? Lin Shuya curled her lips when she saw the pitiful number. Isn't he a rich second generation? How come he is even stingier than Song Yuan? When she clicked on the short video posted by Xiao Nianchen, her eyes lit up again. Such a beautiful house is her new home? She carefully considered the deeper meaning of Xiao Nianchen's message. Did he want to use this house as their wedding house? If that's the case, she will definitely go there tomorrow night, and it won't be a problem for her to pack up and move in with him tomorrow. Lin Shuya imagined herself walking around in a 200 square meter house in her pajamas, and fell asleep unknowingly. On the other side, Song Yuan checked in at the hotel. He had looked at the house on the app during the day. He plans to rent a house that can be used for both commercial and residential purposes to develop games, which can also save commuting time. After all, he is very busy now and has to develop his own games while also taking care of his work at the company. The cell phone suddenly rang, and when he saw the 3/8 at the end of the caller's number, his nerves suddenly tensed up. This can't be. Song Yuan took out the crumpled paper from his pocket and compared the phone number on it with the caller ID, verifying his guess. It was that woman who called last night. Song Yuan scratched his brow with his index finger and then the person on the other side spoke first. I'm going on a business trip tomorrow and will be back in about 2 days. Think about what you want first, and we'll meet when I get back. The woman went straight to the point. Her voice was crisp and textured, and she had a strong aura. She was different from the girls Song Yuan usually came into contact with. He was a little dazed for a moment. He recalled the woman in his bed last night. Her breath was as sweet as orchid, she was charming and sensitive like a blooming rose, and every time he moved, she would hold his waist tightly and let out unbearable sobs. He took away 6 of his 7 souls, and they did it until late last night before stopping. He thought that in real life, she must be a cool, independent-minded beauty. The woman didn't hear him speak for a while and asked again. Can you hear me? Song Yuan withdrew his thoughts. I can hear you. There's no need for us to meet. Just give me your address and I'll send the earrings back to you. The woman's tone was overbearing. I promise to be responsible for you and I can't break my promise. Think about it carefully. I will have my assistant contact you in a few days. She hung up the phone right after she finished speaking. Song Yuan stared at the phone in a daze. Did he hear it right? It seemed like I was the one who took advantage of this matter, and the girl opposite said she would be responsible for him. It was the first time he heard a girl say the word responsible. He felt some special emotions in his heart, a feeling of being valued and respected. Yes, the relationship between men and women is about you and me. We should be responsible for each other. Thinking back to his first time with Lin Shueyao had clearly agreed beforehand, and she was even the one who took the initiative to provoke it. The atmosphere was so tense that she and him were angry for several days after it was over. It was not until he handed over his salary card, added her name to the property certificate, and transferred 100,000 yuan to her brother that he got her smile. She said at the time, Song Yuan, I am not a casual woman. Now that she thinks about it, what she said about not being casual was only because the money was not in place. It's a pity that he only realized it now. It was raining outside. Song Yuan closed the window and lay down in the quilt, thinking about many things and suffering from insomnia. Moon Lake Bay. Lin Shueyao was awakened by the thunder. She subconsciously turned over and reached out in another direction for safety. After finding nothing, she suddenly opened her eyes. There were lightning and thunder outside the window. Lin Shueyao curled up into a ball and wrapped herself tightly in the quilt. She had been afraid of thunder since she was a child. Every time there was thunder, Song Yuan would wake up and hug her in his arms no matter how deep he slept. She suddenly missed the days when Song Yuan was around, and realized that she had become accustomed to his company over the years. With Song Yuan around, she doesn't have to worry about anything, as he will keep everything in her life in order. Chapter 5. She regrets a little. When Lin Shueyao thought of Song Yuan, a trace of regret flashed through her heart. She regretted that she had spoken too harshly that day and said that he would never be able to reach Xiao Nianquan's level in his life. Looking back on those words now, they were quite hurtful to men's self-esteem. Especially comparing him with another man and criticizing him would make anyone feel uncomfortable. Lin Shueyao took out her cell phone from under the pillow. She thought Song Yuan would send her an apology message, but the phone was as silent as a chicken. How is that possible? Is it down? She checked her phone bill and found a balance. Song Yuan actually didn't send her a message or call her. Lin Shueyao inexplicably felt aggrieved, her nose felt sore, and tears fell from the corners of her eyes. She suddenly wanted to find Song Yuan and question him. Why did he just leave and ignore her like that? He knew she was afraid of thunder, but he didn't send her a message to comfort her. After 3 years of relationship, he let go just like that. If it was another woman who was greedy for his money and made him pay more, would he not be so determined to leave? Lin Shueyao felt that her best friend was right. She asked too little from Song Yuan, which resulted in her having no weight in his heart. She huddled in bed, wiping her tears, and finally couldn't help but dial their familiar number, but all she got in response was a busy tone. Lin Shueyao suddenly remembered that when they broke up yesterday, Song Yuan blocked her contact information in front of her. Lin Shueyao felt that if she continued like this, she would soon develop breast hyperplasia, and Song Yuan was really going to piss her off to death. She decided not to forgive him easily. Even if he gave her expensive Heqian jade earrings, she would not turn back easily. Lin Shueyao hardly slept in the middle of the night as she listened to the sound of rain and thunder. The next day, she came to the company with big dark circles under her eyes. She had just turned on the computer when the CEO's special assistant Xu Li called her from the internal line. Lin Shuiyao, yesterday I asked you to organize the information that Mr. Jiyu would use for his business trip. What did you organize? Lin Shuiyao was confused. Did she organize it wrong? Assistant Xu, is there any problem? How dare you ask? President Jiyu is very angry. Go to the CEO's office and explain yourself. After hanging up the phone, Lin Shuiyao felt like a mountain was pressing down on her head. She was most afraid of going to the president's office because every time she went there she would be scolded by that female devil. Lin Shuiyao recalled yesterday's work and couldn't figure out anything. She came to the CEO's office on the top floor with a nervous mood. After knocking on the door a few times, she heard a voice. Enter. When Lin Shuiyao entered the room, she was hit by a pile of documents. Did you submit this garbage? Lin Shuiyao squatted down and picked up the papers scattered on the floor, and replied guiltily. Yes. Ji Yushiyu, the president of GU Corporation, is a well-known female devil in the industry. She is cold and aloof in character, but decisive in the business world. Since taking over GU Corporation, she has led GU Corporation to enter the top 50 of the Fortune Global 500 in just 3 years. All entrepreneurs in the circle are afraid of her, let alone Lin Shuiyao, a small secretary. Lin Shuiyao felt a strong sense of oppression at this moment. Ji Yushiyu was flipping through the documents in his hand and asked without even looking up. What's your name? How much does the company pay you per month? Lin Shuiyao answered with a breath. Lin Shuiyao, 6,500 after tax. Ji Yushiyu glanced at her special assistant Xu Li and said concisely. You can't get good products at a low price. Even the ready-made documents can be printed incorrectly. It seems that they can't do anything well. Just fire them. Recruit a capable person. Salary is not a problem. Don't save me money on hiring people. Lin Shuiyao's heart choked and she was about to cry. In the current employment environment, it is not easy to find a job, let alone a job in such a large company. Jiyu, Mr. Jiyu, I will do my job well, please give me another chance. Ji Yushiyu signed the document without looking up. Why should I trust you? Lin Shuiyao bit her lip, unable to think of any advantages she had for a long time, so she looked at Xu Li for help. Xu Li spoke up. Mr. Jiyu, there is still an hour and a half left before the flight takes off. It takes 35 minutes for our company to drive to the airport, and we have to reserve time for traffic jams on the road. You now have at most 5 minutes to handle your work. Ji Yushiyu finally put down the documents in his hand and looked up at the person standing on the ground, then changed his words. Let's talk about it when we get back. Please put these plans away for me to look at on the way. Let's set off now. Lin Shuiyao breathed a sigh of relief, but she was still a little scared when she returned to her workstation. She silently prayed that the evil woman would forget about this incident when she returned from her business trip. The more Lin Shuiyao thought about it, the more scared she became. If Special Assistant Xu hadn't spoken up for her, she would have been fired on the spot. She couldn't help but want to find someone to complain to, she urgently needed comfort. Lin Shuiyao hid in the stairwell and subconsciously found Song Yuan's number in her mobile phone. Only then did she react and find Xiao Nianchun's number and dial it. She called once, twice, and 3 times, but the only response she got was a cold, robotic voice. Lin Shuiyao felt aggrieved, but Song Yuan would never ignore her calls, and he would give her enough emotional value when she needed it. Thinking of this, Lin Shuiyao missed Song Yuan a little. She wondered what he was busy with. Was he so anxious about their breakup that he couldn't continue writing code? She opened Song Yuan's chat room on WeChat, hesitated for a long time, and then edited a message and sent it. Song Yuan, can you come pick me up after get off work today? And bring me a cup of milk tea from the shop near your company. After sending the message, Lin Shuiyao suddenly felt a little regretful. Would it be too easy for Song Yuan if she compromised first? After all, he failed to apologize formally. Lin Shuiyao thought of her best friend's words. If she bowed her head first, Song Yuan would think that she was a woman who was easy to manipulate. She would always be the weaker one in front of him and would never be taken seriously. But now the information cannot be withdrawn. Forget it, I'll just take Song Yuan's car once and give him a discount. At night, make him kneel at the head of the bed and recite the moral ethics of a man. On the other hand, Song Yuan did feel a little more anxious, but it was not because of his breakup with Lin Shuiyao. Today is the 8th day of the wedding countdown. Where would he find a woman to marry? Song Yuan analyzed all the single women in his address book, but couldn't find any suitable candidate for a quick marriage. He couldn't just conjure up a woman out of thin air. His mother called him and asked him to go home after get off work, and specifically asked him to bring his fiancée with him. Song Yuan felt overwhelmed. As I was hesitating, I received a WeChat reminder on my phone. Song Yuan opened WeChat and saw that the message was from Lin Shuiyao, with a face full of question marks. What is this young lady looking forward to? Song Yuan was editing the information in the dialog box. He had to make it clear to her. Chapter 7. He is indifferent and distant. Lin Shuiyao felt a surge of grievances in her heart. She had never doubted that the person she longed to see come back had been deceiving her. Xiao Nianchen, are you getting engaged? Why did you lie to me? Xiao Nianchen ignored her and instead put his arm around his mother, brought her to the sofa and coaxed her humbly. Mom, don't be angry. Seeing is not necessarily believing. I know my limits. Mrs. Xiao was comforted, her anger was vented, and her emotions gradually calmed down. It's good that you know the importance of this. Our family's business depends on the GU family. If we can't get married to the GU family, 3 generations of the Xiao family will have worked for nothing. Xiao Nianchen bowed his head and admitted his mistake. After a while, he remembered Lin Shuiyao, who was standing stiffly on the ground. Yao, go back first, I'll explain to you later. He pressed the elevator door and took her into the elevator. Lin Shuiyao went downstairs crying. She squatted on the side of the road holding her cell phone and cried for a long time, watching the passing cars and not seeing any one of them coming to pick her up. Xiao Nianchen actually drove her out. She really regretted breaking up, and Song Yuan would never let her suffer such grievances. The night wind blew on her burning cheeks. Lin Shuiyao looked at the familiar number in the address book, hesitating in her heart. Should she call Song Yuan? At this moment, she thought of her best friend's words, this is just a trick of the stinky man to play hard to get. The one who bows his head first will lose. She sat on the curb and cried for a while. Xiao Nianchen still didn't come out to give her an explanation. Lin Shuiyao finally couldn't bear the entanglement in her heart and walked into a roadside shop. Boss, my phone is out of battery, can I borrow yours to make a call? The boss lent her a cell phone, and Lin Shuiyao entered the familiar number. The call was connected, and Song Yuan's voice came from the other end. Lin Shuiyao suddenly couldn't hold it in at that moment, and said with tears in her eyes. Song Yuan, it's me. Can you come out and pick me up? The voice on the other end of the phone had no emotional ups and downs, sounding indifferent and distant. It's not convenient for me right now. Please ask Xiao Nianchen to pick me up. After saying that, Song Yuan hung up the phone. Lin Shuiyao returned the phone, stunned. Did Song Yuan really not want her anymore? She doesn't believe it. He was just angry because of the hurtful words she said. Lin Shuiyao believed that he would come to beg her within 3 days. After all, the wedding was coming soon. Song Yuan hung up the phone and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, feeling that his efforts over the past 3 years were not worth it. The next day was Saturday. When Song Yuan opened his eyes, he seemed to see 7 words, 7 days to the wedding. Lu Kai called and said that he had an appointment with Professor Zhang and they would visit Professor Zhang's home in the morning. Song Yuan secretly put the card given by his father into the bedside table in the master bedroom, bought some gifts at the supermarket, and met Lu Kai downstairs at Professor Zhang's house. Professor Zhang has reached retirement age, but he is unwilling to retire and is still working on the front line, becoming a re-employed teacher. The old man was very dissatisfied with Song Yuan. Do you still remember that you have a teacher? Song Yuan scratched his brow. Professor, I really can't face you. 3 years ago, Professor Zhang's studio had a project that needed a technical expert, so Professor Zhang approached Song Yuan and wanted him to take over. However, Song Yuan refused because Lin Shuiyao's father happened to be sick during those days, and he had to go to the hospital to accompany him every day, so he was too busy to handle the task. Later, the project of Professor Zhang's studio was favored by investors and is now in the stage of preparing for listing. He didn't dare mention those things in front of the professor. Professor Zhang snorted. That's good to know. I'll introduce someone to you later. I guarantee you'll be able to chat with each other. As they were talking, there was a knock on the door. Professor Zhang went to open the door. Speak of the devil and he will appear. Come, let me introduce you to Ji Yuan, your junior fellow apprentice. He is the most satisfying student I have brought out in the past few years. Ji Yuan showed delight. You two are the senior brothers Song Yuan and Lu Kai that the professor often mentions. The examination system you made for the school is still in use at Warda University. Professor Zhang rolled his eyes at him. Who mentions them often? They smiled at each other, and after a chat, Ji Yuan was very interested in the game they were currently making and looked forward to joining in. Song Yuan and Lu Kai also had a certain understanding of Ji Yuan. This older boy who was about to graduate was a few years younger than them. His professional level was not lower than those who had worked for 2 years. He had a certain talent in mathematical logic and would definitely achieve great things in the future. The three of them exchanged contact information. After leaving the professor's house, Song Yuan did not take the car with them. He wanted to walk alone. He had to figure out a way to deal with the bride problem, which was driving him crazy. On the other side, Lin Shuya was awakened by a knock on the door. She rubbed her sleepy eyes and went to open the door, and the people outside were her parents and her younger brother. Lin Shuya's father, Lin Hai, got straight to the point. Your brother has fallen in love with a girl recently. The girl is very happy with him, but she asked for a dowry of 388,000 yuan plus hardware. The family is still short of a little bit, so you should find a way to make up for it. Lin Shuya suddenly woke up. How much do you still need? Wang Chunmai was at home, picking up the fruit on the table and eating it. We still need 370,000 yuan for the betrothal gifts and hardware. My daughter, whether the Lin family can have an heir depends on you. As a sister, you can't just ignore it. Lin Shuya wanted to cry but had no tears. This is what you call just a little bit away? Mom, I don't have that much money. You know I can't even support myself with that little salary I get every month. Lin Hai rolled his eyes at him. We still have Xiao Song. Go ask Xiao Song for it. Lin Shuya's face turned red with anxiety. Dad, I broke up with him. I have no money. Lin Shuya regretted it. If she hadn't broken up with Song Yuan, she would have. You can transfer the money on his card directly to your brother for emergency use. If it is not enough, you can find a way to use his credit card to withdraw some cash. Now. She really can't afford that much money. What, broke up? Wang Chunmai was so angry that her voice rose several decibels. Why don't you discuss it with us before making a decision? Although you won't live a rich life with Xiao Song, at least he can help your brother when he needs it. No matter what, you have to find a buyer first before you divide it, right? What about your brother's betrothal money now? Lin Hai walked around on the ground for a few circles, pointing his index finger at her. You are so confused. Is this house left to you? Lin Shuya nodded and said, yes. My younger brother Lin Yu said anxiously. Sister, why don't you go and ask your brother-in-law to give you a divorce? I have already agreed with him on a date to propose marriage, and you will have to pay the betrothal gift at that time. You can get married to your brother-in-law first, get the betrothal gift from him, and then file for divorce. I can just make up for it. Lin Shuya's mind was in a mess. Don't worry, let me think of a solution first. Now Song Yuan has blocked her, and he is still angry. If she goes to him to ask for money, she will feel inferior to him in the future. Lin Shuya thought of Xiao Nianchen in her mind. Chapter 8 Confrontation. Wang Chunmai cast an admiring look at her son. Your brother is right. Why didn't I think of that just now? You can get back together with Song Yuan now, get married, and get the gift. Their family can't marry a daughter-in-law for nothing, right? Don't even think about marrying my girl without a betrothal gift of 500,000 yuan. Lin Shuya frowned. She and Song Yuan asked for a betrothal gift of 500,000 yuan, and if they went ahead with the wedding, he would definitely have no problem with it, and he would even be very happy. But isn't this too easy for him? He hasn't come to apologize in the past few days, and she won't give in easily. But she couldn't ignore her own brother's affairs. They were siblings, and she had to help her brother with his important life events. Dad, Mom, Lin Yu, don't worry about it. I will find a way to deal with this matter. I will transfer the money to you once I raise it. Lin Hai hummed. You are not a big sister in vain, but you have to hurry up and don't delay your brother's important matter. Wang Chunmai added. 3 days, it would be best if the money is transferred within 3 days. If the girl waits too long, she will think that our family is too poor to come up with this little money. Lin Shuya was confident that Song Yuan was her last line of defense and that the money could definitely be raised. After seeing her family off, Lin Shuya received a call from Xiao Nianchen. Will you come out this afternoon? I'll give you an explanation for what happened yesterday. Lin Shuya was still angry from yesterday. Why should she agree to a date immediately? She had to be polite, otherwise he would think she was the same as the cheap bitch out there who could be coaxed into bed with just a flirt. To deal with a man, you have to go against him and keep fishing for him. What you can't get is the best. I'm not feeling well, so I won't go out. Xiao Nianchen really took the bait and started to coax her. Don't be angry, I'll take you for a ride and give you a gift to make amends. Send me the address and I'll pick you up. Lin Shuya's refusal was also a test. Since you already have a fiancé, let's forget it. I don't want to be someone's mistress and destroy other people's families. Xiao Nianchen laughed softly. My princess, that was just to deal with my mother. What kind of engagement is this? I have no feelings for that woman. We have only met once. What kind of engagement is this? Come out first. Let's work out how to win over my mother and marry you. Lin Shuya was moved by what she heard. It would be great if she could marry into the Xiao family. The 388,000 yuan dowry from her brother was nothing to the Xiao family. Then I'll send you the address, and you come over and call me, don't keep me waiting. Yes, princess. Lin Shuya lost herself in the calls of princess. After hanging up the phone, she quickly washed her hair and put on exquisite makeup. The dress in the closet that she didn't want to wear was given to her by Song Yuan when he paid her last month. She changed her clothes and turned around in front of the mirror. At this moment, Xiao Nianchen called. Come downstairs, princess, I'm at the entrance to your neighborhood. Lin Shuya sprayed perfume on her wrists and went out happily with her bag. Xiao Nianchen came in a sports car today. When Lin Shuya saw the cool sports car from afar, her mood soared that she almost trotted to the front of the car. Xiao Nianchen admitted his mistake very well today and opened the car door for her personally. Princess, please get in the car. Xiao Nianchen helped her fasten her seatbelt, then took out a delicate little box and handed it to her. This is an apology gift for the princess. Please accept it. Lin Shuya was filled with joy. She sat in a sports car, accepted gifts from a man, and was called a princess. This was the life in her dreams. Such a beautiful box should contain a big diamond, right? She was stunned for a moment when she opened the box. A lipstick? She picked up the lipstick and looked it over inside and out, trying to find the hidden pattern underneath it, but there was nothing. Disappointment instantly swept over her body. This was a bit beyond her expectations. Xiao Nianchen, a rich second generation, gave her a mere lipstick as an apology gift. She usually thinks this brand of lipstick is bad, so Song Yuan will buy her a better brand. Xiao Nianchen saw her little emotion but didn't say it out loud. My friend owns a 5-star restaurant that claims to have the freshest seafood in Asia. How about I take you there to try it? Lin Shuya was thinking about her brother's betrothal gift, and didn't know how to start the conversation, so she said, absent-mindedly. Xiao Nianchen stepped on the accelerator and turned the steering wheel towards the Xinglan Hotel. The car stopped downstairs of the Xinglan Hotel. Xiao Nianchen threw the keys to the parking attendant and took Lin Shuya in. Song Yuan came to their hotel to check their wedding venue and brushed shoulders with the two of them when he entered. Lin Shuya was startled when she saw Song Yuan, but then she understood what was going on. Song Yuan, are you following me? If you have something to say, you can just say it directly. There's no need to follow me. Xiao Nianchen raised his eyebrows, with a hint of surprise in his eyes. He had heard that Lin Shuya's ex-boyfriend was an IT worker, a senior engineer, which sounded good. The stereotype should be the same as those programmers in his company: shaved, greasy hair, nearsighted, black backpack, plaid shirt, thin hair. In reality, he looks pretty good and can be considered a handsome guy among men. Unfortunately, he is a poor worker. Xiao Nianchen suddenly had the urge to humiliate him. I heard that you are a coder. My company is currently developing a game and is planning to cooperate with Gu's technology department. The prospects are promising. Would you like to switch to this company? I will pay you double what your previous employer gave you, on the condition that in addition to completing the development task, you also have to be a driver for me and my girlfriend and do whatever I want. How about that? Song Yuan was too lazy to pay attention to anyone, But since those two people were provoking him, he couldn't just give in. Planning to cooperate and already cooperating are two different things. Could it be that Mr. Xiao has not even met the president of GU Corporation and is already recruiting people under the banner of GU Corporation? Does Mr. GU know that there is such an excellent partner like you? Xiao Nianchen was choked. Song Yuan's words hit the nail on the head. He really hadn't met the evil woman of the GU family yet. Tai and his grandmother were close friends. An old lady GU intended to bring him together with that evil woman. But the devil woman's itinerary was kept very secret. He hasn't been able to make an appointment with anyone yet, let alone have a chance to meet her. He can only pin his hopes on old lady GU. But Song Yuan is just a working beast of burden. What is there to be proud of? You are just a code writer. It doesn't matter where you write. The company's cooperation with any particular place has no direct interest in you. Even if the company makes money, you won't get any dividends. You care too much. Song Yuan smiled faintly. Mr. Xiao is also an internet person. How come he doesn't even have this common sense? We in this industry are quite picky about our colleagues. Mr. Xiao doesn't have many high-level talents under him. It must be painful to work with a bunch of rabble every day. What kind of game are you guys playing? It's not the kind of game that old ladies play, is it? Xiao Nianchen was so angry that his face turned from white to red, and then from red to white, and he was completely speechless. Chapter 9, The wedding goes on as planned, but the bride is replaced. Song Yuan glanced at Lin Shuiyao. Excuse me. The manager he had arranged to meet with came over to greet him. Mr. Song, we have already designed the wedding venue for the 19th of this month, and we have also come up with a plan for the wedding process. Please come upstairs to discuss the details. If there is anything you are not satisfied with, we can make adjustments in time. Song Yuan was led away by the manager. Lin Shuiyao fell into deep thought. Did she hear it right? Song Yuan did not cancel the wedding. He was in charge of arranging the wedding venue and procedures, which meant that he still planned to marry her. Lin Shuiyao couldn't help but snort. What a proud man. Even at this point he still refused to bow his head. Did he have to wait until the wedding day to beg her? It really was like what my best friend said. It was too easy to pursue her in the past, so Song Yuan thought he had everything under control with her. Xiao Nianchen's good mood was half disturbed, so he took Lin Shuiyao upstairs to find his friends. How much did Song Yuan spend to book the wedding venue here? Is he willing to hold his wedding in a 5-star hotel with his salary? My friend is the boss here. He doesn't know Song Yuan. He only knows the market situation of his store. The venue fees here range from hundreds of thousands to millions, depending on the specifications. Since you are so curious, shall I call the manager over to ask you? Xiao Nianchen raised his hand and said. Forget it, my princess is hungry, serve the food first. No matter how much money he spent, no matter how well Song Yuan arranged it, it would all be in vain. His fiancée would run away with him, and there would be a green grassland above his head. He would have a lot to cry about on that day. Thinking of this, Xiao Nianchen felt refreshed. The waiter quickly served a table of signature dishes, and Xiao Nianchen poured Lin Shuiyao a glass of red wine. Yao Yao, after dinner I'll take you to the resort in the northern suburbs. I have a yard there. Today is the weekend, so we can stay there for one night and come back tomorrow. It won't delay your work next Monday. Lin Shuiyao pondered his words in her mind, focusing on the 3 words, stay for one night. It was easy to imagine what would happen if a man and a woman stayed together for one night. She was not a naive and foolish college student, and she could not be fooled by men's usual rhetoric. He wanted something from her, and so did she. It's impossible to get her for free, even if it's someone she likes. Having said that, Lin Shuiyao simply brought up what she had been thinking about along the way. Brother Nianchen, I have something to ask of you. Xiao Nianchen paused while peeling shrimp and asked. What's up? I've been in trouble recently and I need some money to solve it. Can you lend me 500,000? I'll pay you back when I save enough money. Xiao Nianchen suddenly fell silent, his eyes rolled left and right, and the word gold digger took shape in his mind. He wondered if he was really cheating on Song Yuan, or if he was just a scapegoat. If Song Yuan didn't want her and gave her to him, it would be troublesome, as he was going to marry into the GU family. She didn't even let me touch her, but she asked for 500,000. Is she gold-plated or diamond-studded? Xiao Nianchen coughed and threw the peeled shrimp into Lin Shui's bowl. Yao Yao, to be honest, I can't take out the money right now because my mom saw me bringing you back to my new home yesterday, and she stopped my card. I'm not afraid of you laughing at me, but the meal we're having now was bought at a friend's restaurant. Well, you eat first, and we'll go to the resort tonight to discuss how to convince my mother to accept you. When you become Mrs. Xiao, will this little money still count? What difficulties can't you solve? Lin Shuya lowered her head to eat, knowing that Xiao Nianchen was coaxing her and still had concerns about her. Xiao Nianchen is a rich second generation, it is impossible for him not to have some private money. Even if he has no money, he must have assets, right? There must be stock funds, right? It is impossible that your living expenses have been cut off and you can only afford a second-tier brand lipstick. If it were Song Yuan, as long as she asked, he would help her raise the money even if he didn't have it, even if he would lend it to her. Thinking of this, Lin Shuya regretted that she shouldn't have been so impulsive to break up with Song Yuan. Her mother was right. She should at least wait until she had confirmed her relationship with Xiao Nianchen before bringing it up. Now I am left with nothing and feel very passive. She thought that when she saw Xiao Nianchen again, they would hit it off and rekindle their old love. Now it seems that she thought too simply. Xiao Nianchen was more cunning than she could imagine. He wanted to sleep with her, but he didn't want to give anything to her. But she already had a solution. She went to the hospital secretly to add a layer of membrane these days. Young masters from wealthy families should all mind this. Once Xiao Nianchen finds out that this is her first time, he will definitely let down his guard against her. Brother Nianchen, are you really going to marry me? Xiao Nianchen raised a greasy hand and swore. Of course, I didn't contact any of my old friends when I returned to China this time. I called you first. Don't you understand my feelings? I came back to marry you. Lin Shuya was half believing and half doubting, but one of his words was very right. When she became Mrs. Xiao in full formality, the 500,000 would be nothing to her. Brother Nianchen, can we get the marriage certificate first? It may be difficult for Auntie to change her mind about me in a short time. You know it's difficult to change a person, not to mention that there is a generation gap between Auntie and our generation. Xiao Nianchen peeled another shrimp and threw it over to change the subject. Eat first, eat first. Lin Shuya put down her chopsticks. I know what you're worried about. I did have a boyfriend after I broke up with you, but nothing happened between him and me. I'm innocent. You'll find out sooner or later. When Lin Shuya said this, her cheeks flushed slightly. Xiao Nianchen's throat rolled slightly because of what she said. He looked at Lin Shuya's pretty face and muttered to himself, Song Yuan is a ninja turtle, right? He hasn't touched her for 3 years. This. He couldn't believe it. Tears welled up in Lin Shuya's eyes. Brother Nianchen, I have been waiting for you. Xiao Nianchen's heart was slightly warmed by what he said. He just wanted to play around at first, but this fucking. What's going on? I feel a little touched. Xiao Nianchen almost took out the card from his pocket, but he calmed himself at the last moment and checked the goods first. Yao Yao, have you finished eating? After you finish eating, let's go to the resort now. I have a bag I want to give you. I wonder if you like it. Lin Shuya understood in her heart that she had guessed the man's little thoughts. This was what Xiao Nianchen was worried about. Xiao Nianchen said goodbye to his friend, took Lin Shuya downstairs, and asked her tentatively in the elevator. What brand of t-shirt do you like? Lin Shuya replied with a red face. No, I haven't used it. I don't know. Xiao Nianchen curled up the corner of his mouth into a smile. When they got out of the elevator, they saw Song Yuan in the lobby. He seemed to have just finished talking with the manager and was about to go out. Chapter 10 Selling a House. Xiao Nianchen thought about what was going to happen in the evening, and then looked at the Ninja Turtle in front of him, and he felt refreshed all over. Who would understand, family members, if he took his fiancée to check into a hotel right under another man's nose? He wished he could write the word adulterer on his face and tell Song Yuan, your future wife is going to be slept with by me, and the one you're going to marry with all your savings is a second-hand girl that I've played with before. Thinking of this, Xiao Nianchen hugged Lin Shuya tightly, pinched her chin and kissed her. Lin Shuya was not prepared for his move and was startled. Her heart was pounding. She turned around and saw Song Yuan, who was about to go out. Song Yuan didn't look at them, and acted as distant as a stranger. She was not sure whether Song Yuan had seen that scene just now. She did not want to make things too awkward with Song Yuan. After all, she was not completely sure about Xiao Nianchen's situation. If she can't marry into the Xiao family, Song Yuan is her last choice. Don't do things to the extreme, you have to leave room for the future. Thinking of this, Lin Shuya moved aside and put some distance between herself and Xiao Nianchen. Xiao Nianchen was very sensitive to her movements and looked over. Yao Yao, you don't still want to go back and be with him, do you? Lin Shuya shook her head. Brother Nianchen, he's not even as good as your heels, how could I choose him between the two of you? Xiao Nianchen thought to himself, this woman has a pure and innocent face, but she is very cruel when doing things. If she finds someone richer in the future, will she stab him in the back like this? He felt some sympathy for Song Yuan. Song Yuan suddenly sneezed as he got into the car, unaware of what was happening behind him. Of course, he thought that it didn't matter since they broke up, and it was Lin Shuya's freedom to date whomever she wanted. Lu Kai's aunt called. Xiao Song, I have prepared all the money. My husband wants to go to their house again. Is it convenient for you now? Convenient. Then I'll wait for you at the gate of the community. Song Yuan drove to Yuhuan community, where Lu Kai and his aunt's family were waiting at the door. Song Yuan brought the person back home, and the moment he opened the door, he frowned at the suffocating environment in front of him. There were half-eaten snail noodles and stinky tofu piled on the coffee table in the living room, the trash can on the floor was full of garbage but had not been emptied, there was a half-finished pot of instant noodles in the kitchen pot, and used bowls and chopsticks were piled in the sink soaking in water. There were dirty clothes scattered all over the sofa and a few unmatched high-heeled shoes on the floor. If you didn't know, you would think there was a homeless person living in the house. Song Yuan thought that Lin Shuiyao had received the information about selling the house and had wisely moved out, but he didn't expect that she was still there and had ruined the house like this. During the days he was away, Lin Shuiyao never cleaned the house, ate junk food every day, and was too lazy to even throw away the takeaway bags when she went out. She is a girl and she can't even maintain basic hygiene. It seems that she has been spoiled by him over the years. Aunt Lu Kai just shook her head at the scene. When she first came to see the house was clean and tidy, not this dirty. Xiao Song, you're not going to regret it, are you? It's okay if you don't want to sell it. Just tell your aunt. You and Lu Kai are friends. Your aunt won't blame you. Song Yuan scratched his head. Sorry, auntie, I'll clean up first. The house must be sold, but today is Saturday and I can't go through the formalities. I promise that the house will be clean and tidy when I hand it over to you. Song Yuan went in and cleaned for nearly half an hour before he cleaned up the surface. He took out 2 large bags of garbage and opened the window for ventilation. After a while, I invited my aunt and her family in to see the house. Lu Kai whispered to Song Yuan in the back. Brother, what kind of life do you usually spend with Lin Shuiyao? Song Yuan didn't dare to recall. In the past 3 years, he treated Lin Shuiyao like an ancestor. He did the housework, earned money, and served her with good food and drink. He is like a free babysitter in this family. In his opinion, if he likes a girl, he should do his best to pamper her. But at this moment he realized that he had given everything to someone who was not worthy. He felt sorry for himself. Song Yuan sighed and said, let's not talk about the past. It's all over. Lu Kai asked him, what about your wedding? Have you found a bride? Only Lu Kai knew about Song Yuan and Lin Shuiyao's breakup. Song Yuan didn't even dare to tell his parents. It was urgent for him to find someone with whom he could have a quick marriage. Song Yuan's head hurts when he thinks about this. The wedding will go ahead, but the person hasn't been found yet. Lu Kai gave him a thumbs up. You're awesome, why don't you go to a dating platform and rent one? You're getting married, not buying cabbage at the market. There are only a few days left, where can you find someone? Song Yuan remained silent. He had no other choice but to take this step. But he suddenly thought of his parents and felt very upset. His parents were also very worried about his marriage. He could lie to everyone except his own parents. When the time comes, things will work out. After looking at the house, my aunt and her family were satisfied with everything. My aunt took a few photos in the house and then the family left. Song Yuan did not return to the hotel today and stayed at home. In the evening, Lin Shuiyao did not come back, and he thought she had moved away. Song Yuan asked the cleaning lady to clean the house thoroughly and threw away some useless things. He only dealt with Lin Shuiyao's things. Song Yuan sent a WeChat message to Lin Shuiyao. Please come back and collect your stuff. The house will be sold next week. If you don't collect it, I will assume that you don't want it and I will clear it out. The message was sent but there was no response for a long time. At that time, Lin Shuiyao followed Xiao Nianchen to the resort, which was actually a small courtyard rented by Xiao's father. Xiao Nianchen told Lin Shuiyao that he bought it. Lin Shuiyao is. While taking a shower, Xiao Nianchen saw her phone screen light up with the note, "Dog liquor." Xiao Nianchen couldn't help laughing when he saw the two words. They really fit the image of the Hulk. He was too lazy to read the content of the message and just clicked delete for her. There was a constant sound of water in the bathroom. Xiao Nianchen looked at the blurry silhouette on the glass door, and his heart was burning with anger. He took off his watch and walked in slowly. After a while, he heard a panting sound from inside. Xiao Nianchen had a lot of fun abroad in recent years, but those women were all bold and unrestrained, and there was almost no one he wanted to see a second time. In front of him, Lin Shuiyao, who was reluctant to accept him but also shy, completely captivated him. He inexplicably thought of Song Yuan and wondered what expression the green-haired turtle would have when he knew. Thinking of this, his blood was rushing, but Lin Shuiyao grabbed him. "Brother Nianchen, about my brother." Half of Xiao Nianchen's lost brain was recalled. He had already drawn his bow, but this woman grabbed his arrow and used it to control him. She was indeed not a simple woman. Chapter 12 Countdown 5 days. It turns out that the woman's surname is Jiyu. Song Yuan thought that there was no need to meet. As a grown man, he was not so pretentious as to ask a girl to be responsible after sleeping with her for one night. But then I thought about the 5-day countdown to the wedding. Within 5 days, he felt that he would most likely not find true love. The best he could do was to rent one for the wedding, but that would involve the risk of being cheated. He suddenly wondered if he could ask that woman for help. Song Yuan changed his mind and decided to give it a try. "Hello, I'm always available. Please take care of Miss Gu's schedule." The other side responded. "Then Mr. Song, I'll arrange for you to meet at 7 o'clock tonight, in the coffee shop below the Hengyue building. Is that okay with you?" "Can." After Song Yuan hung up the phone, he went to the barber shop to get a haircut, went back to change his clothes, and drove to the Hengyue building before 7 o'clock. Looking at this place where he used to come every day, he felt a lot of emotion in his heart. This was where Lin Shuiyao worked. He didn't expect that Miss Jiyu also worked in this area. He thought of the woman's straightforward way of speaking, and he thought she must be very capable at work. He parked the car and walked towards the coffee shop, where he met Lin Shuiyao, who had just come out of the building after get off work. Lin Shuiyao looked at him and was stunned at first, then her eyes showed disdain. "Song Yuan, didn't we agree not to contact each other after we break up? Why did you pick me up? I won't ride in your car." Song Yuan's brain short-circuited for a few seconds. Did he look like someone who was asking for reconciliation? "You misunderstood. I really didn't come here." Lin Shuiyao interrupted him before he could finish. "I know what you want to say, but Song Yuan, let me tell you, your behavior is very despicable, and I can't forgive you." "Song Yuan?" Song Yuan had a black question mark on his face. What had he done wrong? Why did he talk as if he was the one who did something wrong? Without waiting for him to say anything, Lin Shuiyao held her head high and walked past him. She walked forward for about a few minutes, and before Song Yuan could catch up, Lin Shuiyao stopped. She looked back again, but couldn't find Song Yuan in the crowd. Lin Shuiyao suddenly became angry. Why didn't he follow her? Didn't he see that she was angry? What is that bastard doing? He can't even coax his girlfriend. Does he need to be taught step by step? He didn't deliver the gift promptly after buying it, and even lost the person when he came to pick him up. What's in the programmer's head? What a blockhead. At that time, Song Yuan had already entered the coffee shop. He was surprised that he was the only customer in the cafe today. He ordered 2 iced American coffees and sat down at a random seat. The clock hand pointed to 7 o'clock and the sound of high heels tapping approached. The woman, wearing a white skirt and a red sleeveless square-necked sweater, walked towards him hurriedly. Song Yuan was stunned for a moment. He drank a lot that night and only remembered that the woman was very beautiful and had a great figure. But his mind was already blurry about what she looked like. When he saw her again, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart, what a beauty. Lin Shueyao is already considered a school beauty, but compared to this Miss Jiu, she is crushed into dust in seconds. She had a strong aura and walked up to Song Yuan and sat down directly. Seeing him in a daze, she knocked on the table twice with her hand. Song Yuan's wandering brain returned, and he hurriedly took out the earrings he had left for her from his pocket. Ms. Jiu, return the property to its original owner. Jiu Shiu reached out to take it, and opened her sexy red lips slightly. I talked to you on the phone a few days ago. Have you thought about it? What do you want? Song Yuan thought about the wedding countdown that kept him awake at night every day, and mustered up the courage to say, I don't want anything, but I have encountered a difficult problem recently. If you can't help me, please take it as an offense. What is it, you say? Song Yuan cleared his throat and briefly explained the matter. After he finished speaking, he saw that there was no expression on Jiu Shiu's face. He couldn't guess whether she agreed or not. He added, I didn't mean to force you to agree. After all, that night was an accident. I can understand why you think it's outrageous. Miss Jiu, sorry to bother you. He stood up and prepared to leave, but Jiu Shiu stopped him. Wait a moment, I'll make a phone call. Jiu Shiu took her phone and walked to a place where Song Yuan couldn't hear her. She called her assistant Xu Li over. Find me all the information about that man within 3 minutes. Xu Li hurried to do it. Jiu Shiu returned to her seat and took a sip of coffee, and Xu Li sent the information she had found to her mobile phone. She slid her fingers lightly across the screen, looking at the man's message. His name is Song Yuan, his native place is Beijing, his parents are teachers, he is 28 years old, has no bad habits, is in good health and has no family history of genetic diseases. There are no infectious diseases. Jiu Shiu breathed a sigh of relief when she saw this. She had been worried about contracting some bad disease these days. After all, she didn't even take any precautions that night. Now she can rest assured. Graduated from the Computer Science Department of Huazhong University. Jiu Shiu paused when she saw this. She went to the same school as her unreliable younger brother. He is 1.87 meters tall and weighs 72 kilograms. Jiu Shiu raised her eyelids slightly, and when she looked down, she saw his ID photo. Jiu Shiu took 2 minutes to browse through all the messages and put away his phone. I can agree to your request, but I hope that we can not only hold a wedding, but also get a marriage certificate. Song Yuan was so shocked that he almost choked on his coffee. He just suggested that Miss Jiu help out by attending the wedding 5 days later and dealing with relatives and friends, but he didn't intend to make it real. Miss Jiu was very decisive and wanted to get the marriage certificate. Received them all. Without waiting for him to speak, Jiu Shiu asked again. How about tomorrow? Bring your ID and wait for me at the Civil Affairs Bureau at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Song Yuan's heart was beating wildly. After getting the marriage certificate, they would be legally husband and wife. How could she talk about such a big thing as marriage as if it were as common as eating and drinking? He suddenly thought of Lin Shueyao. He had put a lot of effort into proposing to Lin Shueyao. He booked a table at a Western restaurant, prepared the ring and flowers, and finally got her to agree. He suggested getting the marriage certificate first, and Lin Shueyao's face changed. She said that her household registration booklet and ID card were with her mother, and that their whole family were traditional people and they had to follow the traditional procedures step by step. You have to pay the betrothal gift, buy hardware, buy wedding clothes, and visit family and relatives with the gifts. Only after you have completed all the steps can you get the certificate from your mother and get married. Song Yuan felt like he had suddenly found a beautiful wife. Will she lose out in this way? At least she should ask about his income, whether he has a house or a car, how much dowry he can give, etc., right? Miss Jiu, don't you need to ask about my situation? Jiu Shiu replied directly. No need, at WeChat first, and I'll contact you if anything happens. Chapter 13 My wife is 100 times more beautiful than her. Song Yuan took out his own QR code and pushed it to the front. With a beep, the code was scanned and he received a friend request on WeChat. After adding the friend, Jiu Shiu looked at her watch. She seemed to be in a hurry. I have something to do and I'm leaving first. Don't be late tomorrow. Song Yuan stared at her back in a daze. His future wife. Seems kind of cool. He looked at her WeChat again. Her avatar was a cute cat. Her WeChat name had 2 letters, U. The background of her moments was the same as her avatar, a picture of a cute cat. There was nothing else like that. He suddenly remembered that he hadn't asked her name yet, he only knew her last name was Gu. Forget it, I'll know when I get the certificate tomorrow. Song Yuan pinned her WeChat account to the top. On the other side, Jiu Shiu left the coffee shop and received a life-threatening call from the old lady at home. Shiyu, are you really busy, or are you hiding from me? Is it that difficult to ask you to come back for a blind date? It's time for you to start a family at your age. How can you do that if you only think about work? Listen to Grandma. I've seen the grandson of the Xiao family. He's very smart and good-looking. He's a good choice. I hope you can get married this month and give me a big fat great-grandson next month. Otherwise, you're unfilial. Jiu Shiyu's tone was helpless. How many times have you met that grandson? How do you know that he is a reliable person? The old lady was angry and asked, why are you still cursing? Jiu Shiyu coaxed the old man for a few words and hung up the phone. Assistant Xu Li asked, Mr. Jiu, are you really going to get married with that man named Song Yuan? Is he attracted by the Jiu family's money? Jiu Shiyu frowned slightly. She really didn't know what kind of person Song Yuan was, but the information in his profile seemed to meet her requirements. Moreover, she believed that appearance reflects the heart and she could not be wrong in judging people. She really knew that the man surnamed Xiao was not a good person. Xiao Nianchen had a shameful private life abroad. After returning to China, his family had been trying to get in front of the old lady and match this unequal marriage, clearly trying to curry favor with their Jiu family. The old lady was fooled for a moment. No matter how she was persuaded, she would not listen. She insisted on one thing, that she should marry Xiao Nianchen. Jiu Shiyu felt a headache when she thought of the old lady's words urging her to get married. She needed a man to help her avoid those troubles. Just at this time, Song Yuan appeared. Jiu Shiyu rubbed her brows, thinking about Song Yuan's expression when she was talking to him in the coffee shop just now. He probably didn't know her true identity yet. Don't tell Song Yuan that I'm the president of Gu's company. Remember, I'm just a team leader working at Gu's company, with a monthly salary of 9,000 yuan. Xu Li understood that the president wanted to pretend to be poor to test the gentleman, and she would definitely cooperate. Song Yuan returned to the hotel, found his ID, and rummaged through the drawers to find a new white shirt. Lying in bed, he was a little unable to sleep. It was just getting a certificate, how could he be more exciting than marrying Lin Shueyao? He recalled the passionate moment he had with Miss Jiu that night, and his heart felt hot. Even though he is already 28 years old, he still acts like a young boy who just fell in love. Song Yuan sent a message in the small group of 3 people. Brothers, I am going to get the marriage certificate tomorrow, please come and bless me. Lu Kai, fuck. You're kneeling down to lick Lin Shueyao again? You spineless licking dog. Song Yuan, bar. It's not her, my wife is 100 times prettier than her. Lu Kai, then buddy, I really have to give you a big red envelope. Congratulations on getting out of that big pit of Lin Shueyao. I wish you and your wife have a baby soon. Jiu Shiyuan, drag my sister-in-law into the group so we can get to know each other. Song Yuan hesitated for a moment. He had not yet become familiar with his future wife, and he did not know what her temper was like. He decided to wait until he got a little more familiar with her before bringing her in. Let us wait until next time. I'll treat you guys to a drink some other time. Song Yuan was immersed in the joy of being single and had no idea that Lin Shueyao was complaining about him to her bestie at this moment. Do you think Song Yuan has a hole in his brain? He came to pick me up, and then he saw me getting angry, and he even lost me. It's hard to imagine how I could have tolerated him for 3 years. Xiaoxi smiled and said, Men are command animals. You can't do without training. In my opinion, Song Yuan is a little slow-witted. You might as well replace him as soon as possible. Lin Shueyao, he really doesn't deserve me. He and I are together because we are backward compatible. After Lin Shueyao hung up the phone, her mother called. Yao Yao, it's already the 3rd day. Have you gotten the money? You can afford it, but your brother's girlfriend can't. Don't let people think that our family is so poor that we can't even come up with this little money. Lin Shueyao replied sullenly. Got it. I will definitely transfer the money to you tomorrow at the latest. Lin Shueyao called Xiao Nianchen directly. After that night, Xiao Nianchen told her about her brother's problem and he would help solve it. The phone beeped for a long time, but no one answered. Lin Shueyao dialed the number several times but couldn't get through. He must be busy and had no time to answer the call. Lin Shueyao first edited a message and sent it to Xiao Nianchen, waiting for his reply. Lin Shueyao thought of Song Yuan. He should have come back today, cleaned the house thoroughly, and threw away a lot of garbage. She couldn't quite figure out why Song Yuan was being so arrogant. Is this a case of saying one thing and doing another? He was clearly worried that she was going to die, and he even secretly came back to help her clean the house while she was at work, but he just remained silent and refused to apologize. Why didn't she realize that Song Yuan was this kind of person before? Lin Shueyao put on a facial mask and watched a few episodes of TV series until she felt sleepy, but Xiao Nianchen didn't call her back. Lin Yu sent another message on WeChat. Sister, why haven't you transferred the money yet? Have you managed to convince your brother-in-law? He won't abandon you, will he? Lin Shueyao has not told her family about her plan to marry into the Xiao family, but what her brother said is too outrageous. How could Song Yuan not want her? As long as she waved her hand, Song Yuan would come over happily, serving her tea and water, and massaging her feet and shoulders. Lin Shueyao replied to her brother. Just keep busy with your work. Since I promised to get you the money, I will definitely get it. Xiao Nianchen couldn't be contacted today, but she still had Song Yuan to back her up. Lin Shueyao looked at the time and decided to wait until 11 o'clock. If Xiao Nianchen still didn't reply, she could just ask Song Yuan to bow his head and ask him to go back to his parents' house to ask for some. Chapter 14, Getting a Marriage Certificate with My Wife. The time reached 11 o'clock, and Lin Shueyao still hadn't received Xiao Nianchen's call. She was a little suspicious. Was he deliberately not calling back? Soon, she dispelled her concerns, because he had sworn an oath in bed that night. She believed him. Lin Shueyao held the phone. There was no news from Xiao Nianchen, so she could only contact Song Yuan. She had to transfer the money to her brother by tomorrow at the latest. She called Song Yuan first, but got a busy tone in response. Lin Shueyao was so angry that her brows knitted together. He even removed her from the blacklist. Does he still want to get back together? Lin Shueyao returned to WeChat and sent a message to Song Yuan. Song Yuan, I've been having nightmares these past 2 days, can you come back and accompany me? She felt that Song Yuan should be able to understand what she meant and give her a way out. There would be no point in making a fuss any further. As soon as she sent the message, Song Yuan replied. We broke up. It's not suitable. Let's not contact each other anymore. When Lin Shueyao saw the message Song Yuan sent back, she became so angry that her breathing became unstable. Is Song Yuan not done yet? Song Yuan doesn't think he can find someone better if he leaves her, right? Song Yuan, what do you mean? The last message was sent, followed by a red exclamation mark. Lin Shueyao stared at the phone with her eyes wide open. Song Yuan has become so successful that he even dares to block her on WeChat. It's outrageous, it's really outrageous. Lin Shueyao was so angry that she couldn't sleep well all night. Song Yuan also did not sleep well that night. The difference was that he was too excited to sleep. The next morning, Song Yuan got up, shaved, put on his new white shirt, got himself ready, and went to the Civil Affairs Bureau with his ID. He and Ji Yushiu had agreed to meet at 9 o'clock, but he arrived at 8:30. Song Yuan waited outside the Civil Affairs Bureau for half an hour, and Ji Yushiu arrived almost on time. She got out of a Volkswagen car, wearing 8-centimeter stilettos, and she was still stunningly beautiful. Song Yuan pointed at the car parked not far away and asked, Did you drive here yourself? Ji Yushiu hesitated and answered, I bought a used car on that website. Song Yuan didn't respond, and the two walked into the Civil Affairs Bureau together. Not many people came to get married today, so they waited for a few minutes before going through the formalities. The whole process took less than 10 minutes. Holding the two hot little notebooks, Song Yuan felt like he was dreaming. It turned out that getting married was not difficult, but marrying Lin Shueyao was difficult. When they were signing, taking photos and swearing, he secretly observed Miss Jiu. She was quick and efficient from beginning to end. There couldn't be a faster flash marriage than theirs. Song Yuan took the red book from Ji Yushiu's hand, took a photo and returned it to her. I don't know what job you do yet. Ji Yu's eyes rolled slightly. I work at Goose, as a team leader in the technical department. My work can be a bit busy during normal times, from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., so I have to work a lot of overtime. Song Yuan nodded. I understand. I often work overtime, too. But Song Yuan was a little embarrassed to speak. He had just lost his job. If the game was not sold, he might not see any returns in a short time. Most girls would mind it. I wonder if she would be angry. Song Yuan hesitated for a moment and decided that he should make his point clear to avoid conflicts in the future. I just quit my job and am now unemployed. But I developed a small game with my friends, and we set up a working group to make it happen. No income for the time being. Song Yuan thought Ji Yuxiu would be unhappy, but he didn't see any obvious emotion on her face, as if what he had just said was unimportant. Ji Yuxiu just hummed lightly, with a nice arc at the corner of her mouth. The prospects for making games are good. There are markets both at home and abroad. I look forward to your game being released. Ji Yuxiu's attitude surprised Song Yuan. Doesn't she care about her husband's income, whether he will be able to support the family in the future, and so on? If it was Lin Shuiyao, knowing that he had lost his job while having no income from making games, she would have been furious. She would have forced him to give up his ideals and go back to the company to beg Wang Jinsai to continue working for her. Song Yuan liked Ji Yuxiu even better. She seemed to be supporting his career unconditionally, and he felt warm in his heart for some reason. He explained his financial situation. I have a house that I'm planning to sell. I'm going through the transaction process recently. It can be sold for more than 3 million. I haven't seen a new house yet. Do you have any properties that you like? Or do we have time to go and have a look together? Speaking of housing issues, Ji Yuxiu scratched her forehead. She had her hair in a low ponytail today, with her jet black hair tied behind her head. She looked neat and tidy, exuding the competence of a working woman. Ji Yuxiu obviously hadn't considered the housing problem after marriage before getting the marriage certificate. If they lived separately, her grandmother would definitely say that she was faking the marriage and deliberately going through the motions, and would continue to force her to marry that scumbag named Xiao. But living together. She thought for a few seconds and then said, I have a 3-bedroom apartment in the 3rd Ring Road. Would you mind moving in with me? Song Yuan felt that he owed her something. After getting the marriage certificate, he couldn't even provide her with a decent place to live. The house in Yuehubei was full of traces of his and Lin Shuiyao's life together. He didn't want to bring Ji Yuxiu to live there as that would be a blasphemy to their marriage. Song Yuan sighed deeply in his heart, and he secretly vowed to make this game bigger and better, and one day he would make up for what he owed her. Although Song Yuan didn't have a chauvinistic mindset, it would be a bad idea to have a boyfriend when getting married. He didn't have anything to show off. He was in distress for a while. I can move to your place. When I get the money for my house, I'll give you the card for your household expenses. Ji Yuxiu smiled. Between husband and wife, there is no need to calculate so clearly. We should have been considerate of each other. She looked at her watch. I'll have a meeting later. I'll send you the address of the house on WeChat. See you tonight. Oh, by the way, send me the photos. After Ji Yuxiu finished speaking, she walked towards her parking space. Song Yuan stood there staring at her back in a daze for a long time. It took him a while to react. Ji Yuxiu asked him to send her the photo of the marriage certificate that he had just taken. In the car, Ji Yuxiu told his assistant Xu Li. Go to the 3rd Ring Road and buy me a 3-bedroom apartment. It's fine in a mid to high-end neighborhood, but not too high-end. It has to be fully furnished. I want to move in tonight. Xu Li said, huh? Her boss must be crazy. He didn't want the villa anymore, got married to a man he had met less than 3 times, and moved to a mid to high-end residential area. Plus, changing the car this morning was already the 2nd time she was shocked. Boss Ji, I will contact Boss Lu from Lu's real estate right now and ask him to pick out a suitable property from his own property. Ji Yuxiu didn't respond and sent the photo of the marriage certificate sent by Song Yuan directly to the family group. The quiet group exploded instantly. No matter what others said or asked, Ji Yuxiu did not respond. He read the business plan submitted by his subordinates in the car. Chapter 15 Brother-in-Law. Song Yuan went to the supermarket to buy some wedding candies and drove to the three-person studio. Ji Yushuan's loft had been cleaned up. When he entered, Lu Kai and Ji Yushuan were both there. Song Yuan gave the newly bought wedding candies to the two of them. "I've got the marriage certificate. Brother, I have a wife. Come, have some wedding candy." Lu Kai has been single for many years. It would be a lie to say that he is not jealous. "Is this wedding candy? This is clearly dog food. Show us the photo of your wife. Which fairy with vision took in a lost soul like you?" Song Yuan covered the marriage certificate in his pocket and refused to show it to them. His wife hadn't even looked at it a few times herself, so why should she show it to his brothers? "It's beautiful anyway." Ji Yushuan, who was sitting next to him, sighed. "Speaking of which, my sister also got her marriage certificate today. I don't know which idiot would marry a boring woman like her who only works in life. I'm really worried about my brother-in-law whom I've never met. What if the wedding night is going great, but my sister takes a phone call and goes back to work? Do you think it will spoil the fun?" Song Yuan comforted him. Women should also be independent and have their own careers instead of relying entirely on a man. "I believe your brother-in-law will understand. Besides, you think our industry is that good? There are cases where programmers are called back to fix bugs on their wedding day." Ji Yushuan was very curious about his mysterious brother-in-law. He didn't know how his sister had tricked him into coming to him. With so many family members in the group asking him, she didn't say a word. She just sent a photo and disappeared. "I hope my brother-in-law has the same idea as you and won't be scared by my sister's workaholic attitude." As he was talking, Song Yuan's cell phone rang. He picked it up and heard a voice of brother-in-law coming from the other end of the phone. "Brother-in-law." Song Yuan was stunned. He had just discussed his brother-in-law with Ji Yushuan, and someone here called him brother-in-law. He reacted, and the person on the other side introduced himself. "Brother-in-law, I'm Lin Yu, didn't you save my number?" "Lin Yu?" Song Yuan frowned. Why did this guy who ruined the mood call? "What's the matter?" Lin Yu laughed twice at the other end. "Brother-in-law, my sister has told you everything about me, right? When are you going to transfer the money to me? I'm really anxious. Otherwise, you can send the betrothal gift to my sister first. It will be given sooner or later anyway." Song Yuan was silent for a few seconds. He was in a good mood today and didn't hang up the phone directly. He could chat with that person for a while. "Lin Yu, right? Are you your mother's child or mine? Your hands and feet are broken, so you can't work. If that's the case, I suggest you go to the relevant department to apply for a disability certificate, and the country will help you." The person on the other end of the phone remained silent for a long time, obviously confused by his remarks. Still thinking of cheating money from him, what are you dreaming of? Song Yuan hung up the phone and added the person to the blacklist. After calming down, I started to work. On the other end of the phone, Lin Yu held the phone in his hand and it took him a long time to come back to his senses. Did he hear it right? Song Yuan had grown up and dared to scold his future brother-in-law so badly. Do you believe that he could make the marriage fail with just one word? Lin Yu called Lin Shueyao. "Sister, has Song Yuan taken poison? He scolded me. He actually dared to scold me. Don't marry him. He doesn't even have the minimum respect for his brother-in-law." Lin Shueyao also had a headache. Song Yuan's temper had changed a lot recently. Sometimes she couldn't figure out what was going on in his mind. He tried to beg for reconciliation, but his words were as hard as a rock and he didn't even say a word of apology. "Don't look for him yet. I'll leave him alone for a few days." Lin Yu was so angry. "Sister, what do you mean? Are you just going to let it go? He scolded me, he scolded your brother, are you just going to ignore it? You haven't even married him yet, but you're already turning your back on me. You're my sister." Lin Shueyao took a day off today, and Xiao Nianchen hadn't called her back yet. She came to his company to block him, feeling annoyed. Okay, I'm a little busy, so I won't talk about it for now." After hanging up the phone, she walked directly into the company building, but was stopped by the front desk. "Miss, who are you looking for?" "I'm looking for Xiao Nianchen. You need to make an appointment in advance to see our Mr. Xiao." "Have you made an appointment?" Lin Shueyao said unhappily. "I'm his girlfriend, what's the appointment?" The front desk was also in a bit of a dilemma. After all, there were recent rumors in the company that Xiao's only son would marry into the GU family. The woman in front of them might be the subject of some romantic debt. As they were fighting, Xiao Nianchen came out of the elevator with the car keys in his hand. When he saw Lin Shuiyao, he paused and immediately walked forward to pull her out of the building. "Why are you here?" No matter how slow Lin Shuiyao was, she could see that Xiao Nianchen didn't like her being here. After all, it was because his mother didn't like her, and Xiao Nianchen was afraid of his mother. She suddenly felt a little aggrieved. She had heard that it was difficult to get along with the mothers-in-law of wealthy families. She had realized it before she even entered the house. Xiao Nianchen's mother was not a good person. After they got married, the couple must move out and live separately, otherwise they would suffer endless humiliation. "Brother Nianchen, I called you many times yesterday, but you didn't answer. Did you see my message?" Xiao Nianchen's face froze. How could he not have seen so many calls, and her message? He was not blind. He didn't expect Lin Shuiyao to come to the company to ask him for money. Xiao Nianchen had a strong feeling that he had taken the job that Song Yuan didn't want and became the one who was taken advantage of. He asked for so much money after just sleeping with her a few times, and wanted gifts and this and that. All in all, it costs more than hiring a call girl. Does she have diamonds or something? Yao Yao, don't worry. I saw your message. I'm still trying to convince my mom. You know that the two generations have different ideas and it's hard to change. This won't happen overnight. Give me some time. Lin Shuiyao is really anxious now. You promised to help me solve my brother's problem that night. I came to you because I have no other choice. Lin Shuiyao still remembered what he said in bed that night. He said, "Your brother is my brother." Xiao Nianchen's face was gloomy and he didn't say anything. He thought to himself, do you believe what a man says in bed? He doesn't have a fool written on his forehead to raise a stranger as his brother. Yao Yao, please forgive me, I really have no money right now. My mom blocked my credit card, and now I have to borrow my friend's gas card to buy gas. Lin Shuiyao took a step forward, took Xiao Nianchen's hand, and looked at him with a pair of clear and innocent eyes. Brother Nianchen, why don't you mortgage the car? Wait until you and auntie get back together and then take the car back. I really need money right now. Xiao Nianchen looked at her pretty little face and cursed in his heart, fuck. Asking him to sell the car, what is going on in this woman's mind? Who does she think she is? Chapter 17 I won't forgive him easily. When the door opened, Lin Shuiyao was stunned when she saw the two old men outside. It turned out that they were not Song Yuan. Dao Yulian was holding a thermos bucket in her hand, which contained the sweet and sour pork ribs she had made. Song Yuan told her family that Lin Shuiyao liked the sweet and sour pork ribs she made, so she made a lot and brought them over this time. Yao Yao, you just got off work and haven't eaten yet. Auntie brought you your favorite sweet and sour spare ribs. Lin Shuiyao didn't say anything. The person outside the door was not Song Yuan. She was a little disappointed. What she needed now was someone who could help her solve the problem, not a plate of sweet and sour pork ribs, although she did like it. She now felt that Song Yuan was a cowardly man. She had angered her fiancé and was too embarrassed to appease her, so she asked her parents to do it instead. Do you think she is so easy to fool? Auntie, did Song Yuan ask you to come? Dao Yulian saw that Lin Shuiyao's face looked a little strange, and the couple seemed to be having a quarrel. Yao Yao, you two are going to get married soon, live happily together. If Song Yuan does anything wrong, tell me and I will help you deal with him. Lin Shuiyao didn't say anything. Of course he was wrong. He had done a lot of wrong things in the past few days. If he could realize his mistake earlier and come to her to apologize, she could give him a lighter sentence. But now, she wasn't so easy to forgive. As long as she doesn't forgive him, Song Yuan's whole family will be embarrassed at the wedding for days later, and they will cry. Lin Shuiyao held the food in silence, but when she smelled the aroma of the sweet and sour pork ribs in the thermos bucket, her stomach growled a few times. Dao Yulian took her hand and led her to the small restaurant, opened the lunch box, which contained not only her favorite sweet and sour spare ribs, but also 2 meat dishes and 2 vegetable dishes, as well as a bucket of old hen soup. Yao Yao, even if you and your spouse quarrel, you should still eat well. Don't hurt your stomach. Auntie has something for you today. Dao Yulian took out the exquisite jewelry box from her backpack and placed it on the table. She opened the box and saw gold inside. Lin Shueyao paused holding the chopsticks, and a smile appeared on her face. Auntie, these are for you. Pick the ones you like best to wear at your wedding and keep the rest. Lin Shueyao looked at those jewelries and couldn't help but think of her younger brother, Lin Yu, who was getting married and wanted to buy hardware. Song Yuan's mother brought more than just hardware this time. There were 3 gold bracelets, 6 necklaces, and quite a few small items such as earrings and rings. She didn't count them carefully but knew there were quite a lot just by taking a quick glance. There was also an ancestral jade bracelet. Lin Shueyao thought that she could keep some of the gold to wear at her wedding, and give the rest to her brother for his wedding. Thinking of this, she felt better and her appetite was whetted. She picked up the food in the lunchbox and ate it with relish. Just then, the door opened and Song Yuan walked in, exhausted. Lin Shueyao just glanced at him and then looked away. A man without tact is not worth her attention. Dao Yulian saw her son coming in and went over to help him get his shoes. Song Yuan, you haven't eaten yet, hurry up and wash your hands and come over to eat with Yao Yao. Song Yuan stepped on the accelerator all the way and it took him more than 20 minutes to get back. He looked at the time and it was not yet time for Ji Yushiu to get off work. He is a punctual man and he cannot break his promise to her on the first day of their marriage. Mom, why didn't you say hello to me before you came? Song Heng rolled his eyes at him. If we hadn't come, we wouldn't have known that you and Yao Yao were having a conflict. The wedding is about to start, so don't mess around. Lin Shueyao was eating, and pursed her lips from an angle where Song Yuan couldn't see. She felt relieved when she saw him being scolded. After so many days of stalemate, there was still no result. The problem could have been solved by just apologizing himself, but he insisted on involving his parents, and in the end the whole family had to apologize to her. Song Yuan, he deserves it. At that time, Song Yuan had no time to explain anything. If he was any later, he would miss the time he had agreed with Ji Yushiu. Just as he was about to leave, he noticed the jewelry box that his mother had shown him a few days ago on the table. That was the jewelry box she had prepared for her daughter-in-law, and it should be given to Ji Yushiu, not worn by Lin Shueyao. Song Yuan strode to the dining room, closed the jewelry box, and put his arms around his parents. Dad, Mom, please come with me first. I will explain to you on the way. It will be too late. Song Heng and Dao Yulian were led out of the door by him in confusion. Song Yuan didn't even glance at Lin Shueyao, and directly hugged his parents into the elevator. The elevator door closed and slowly descended. Dad, Mom, I have something to tell you. Today, I got the marriage certificate. Dao Yulian smiled happily and said, Today is such a good day. You silly kid, why didn't you tell me? Our family should have a reunion dinner to celebrate. Call Yao Yao out now and let's go celebrate. Song Heng also echoed. Yes, today is a day worth celebrating. Song Yuan led his parents out of the apartment building and opened the door for them. Dad, Mom, listen to me. Your daughter-in-law is not Lin Shueyao. I have broken up with her. Song Heng was stunned. When this kid came home a few days ago, the family was discussing their wedding, but he hadn't mentioned breaking up with Lin Shueyao and having another girlfriend. How come he changed his marriage partner in just a few days? What are you playing at, little brat? Dao Yulian was confused. Song Yuan, what nonsense are you talking about? You and Yao Yao have such a good relationship, but you got married to someone else. Don't fool us. Song Yuan stepped on the accelerator and turned the steering wheel towards the Hengyue building. Dad, Mom, I can't possibly forgive Lin Shueyao for betraying me. I'm not joking about getting married. Anyway, your daughter-in-law is great, 1,000 times better than Lin Shueyao. You'll see her soon. We still have to have the reunion dinner, and the wedding will be held in 4 days. I hope you can give your son face and don't mention Lin Shueyao when you meet your daughter-in-law later. These 3 words. Song Heng and Dao Yulian looked at each other, confused by what their son said. The incident happened too suddenly and they were not mentally prepared at all. But since their son said so, they will definitely respect him. Dao Yulian looked at the box of jewelry on the passenger seat and was glad that she had just taken it back. However, she didn't expect that Lin Shueyao had broken up with her son, and she didn't say a word when receiving the gift, and accepted such a large box of jewelry as a matter of course. Looking at Song Yuan who was driving the car, Dao Yulian sighed. Son, what's the name of the girl you're taking us to see? You should at least introduce her to us first. This is our first meeting and we haven't prepared anything, not even a gift. You're too rude. Song Yuan drove the car to the roadside in front of her new building and stopped temporarily. Mom, I'll explain it to you in detail later. Now I'll take her over. Song Yuan opened the car door and dialed the number he had set as the top number. Chapter 18, Meeting the Parents. After the call was connected, the other party quickly picked up the phone. Song Yuan spoke first. Shiyu, I'm downstairs from your company. You can see me when you go downstairs now. The first time he called her by her nickname, Song Yuan felt a little strange, but it didn't matter. They were already husband and wife, and they would get to know each other sooner or later. The other party was obviously stunned for a moment, not used to his address, but he quickly came to his senses. I'll be right downstairs. Song Yuan listened to the clear voice and thought of Ji Yushiyu's bright little face, as delicate as Newer's graduation project. He accidentally thought of that night again. Song Yuan patted his head to pull his thoughts back to his senses. He looked towards the Hanua building and saw Ji Yushiyu just walking out of the building with a few gift boxes in her hands. Today she had her black hair scattered on her shoulders and wore a beige dress that was well cut and girlish in style, the kind of good girl style that the elders liked. Song Yuan ran over to help her get her things. I'm not disturbing your work, am I? Ji Yushiyu shook his head. No, my work is all on schedule. If you have anything to say, just tell me in advance so that it won't disrupt the plan. Have you been waiting downstairs for a long time? Song Yuan reached out to help her get the things, and felt warm in his heart when he heard her greeting. In the past, he would wait for Lin Shuya downstairs of this building for an hour. After picking her up, she would roll her eyes at him, saying that her milk tea didn't have 3 parts of sugar, her favorite restaurant was out of seats, and she didn't hold the parasol above her head. Lin Shuya never cared about how long he had been waiting outside, whether he was cold or exposed to the sun. He came back to God and replied. No, I just got here a few minutes ago. Ji Yushiyu was not polite and gave him the things in his hand. I bought these for your parents as a token of my appreciation. I hope they won't dislike them. You spoke too hastily this time, and I didn't have time to ask you what they liked, so I wasn't fully prepared. Song Yuan took a look at the things in his hands, a box of 6 bottles of Feichin Maotai, another box with a few huazi, a box of tea, and a handbag containing supplements for women. In short, they were not cheap. Is this considered insufficient preparation? Song Yuan made a rough calculation and found that these things were not cheap, yet it was amazing that she, a mere white-collar worker, was so generous. Song Yuan felt a little regretful that he had not told her in advance not to buy things. These things would cost her a lot of money and were really a waste. She wouldn't spend 2 months' salary in one go, would she? Of course, he didn't ask her how much she earned every month, and he would give her the money later. However, Song Yuan couldn't help but look at her. Ji Yushiyu was a little confused by his gaze. What's wrong? Is my makeup smudged? Song Yuan now had time to observe her face. She had put on the lightest makeup today, so light that it was barely noticeable. She looked as natural as a lotus flower emerging from clear water, with no room for flowers. He replied to her. No, it looks good. The sudden compliment created some awkwardness between the two of them. Ji Yushiyu asked. Then the look in your eyes just now. Song Yuan explained. I just think that this time I've cost you a lot of money. My parents are very reasonable. They won't mind if you don't buy anything. Ji Yushiyu nodded politely. It's okay, this is a little gift from me. Song Yuan felt that this was a heavy token of her respect for him and his parents. After a few seconds of silence, he asked. I don't know if your family is local yet. If there is a chance, you can arrange a time and I will visit them. Ji Yushiyu replied calmly. My parents are divorced, my father remarried, my mother remarried, and I grew up with my grandmother. I also have a useless brother at home. I will take you to meet my grandmother when I have the chance. As they were talking, the two walked to the front of the car. Song Hang and Dao Yulian had already gotten out of the car and were waiting for them. Song Yuan introduced them to. This is my dad, and this is my mom. Dad, Mom, this is Shiyu, your daughter-in-law. Ji Yushiyu put on a proper smile and called for help as Song Yuan said. Dad, Mom, hello. This is our first meeting, so I prepared a small gift for you. I hope you don't mind. Song Hang and Dao Yulian were delighted to see their daughter-in-law, who had an outstanding appearance and a brilliant temperament. Although it was the first time they met, she called them mom and dad as soon as they opened their mouths and spoke generously without any shyness. Dao Yulian came to her senses and quickly responded, nudging Song Hang with her arm. "The child is calling you, but you're still standing there." Song Hang responded with a smile. Hey. Let's go home and eat." Dao Yulian looked a little excited. Yes, let's go home and have a reunion dinner." "Are you hungry, kid?" Ji Yushiyu said bluntly. "A little." Dao Yulian smiled and said, "Mom bought some beef at noon, I'll cook it for you guys when I get home." Song Yuan put the things in the trunk, waited for everyone to be seated, then stepped on the accelerator and drove towards home. Song Yuan had walked this road with Lin Shuiyao and her parents before. His mood at this moment was completely different from before. Now the people in his car were his real family members, not ancestors who needed to be worshipped and coaxed by the whole family. Song Yuan thought that Ji Yushiyu would be reserved when meeting his parents for the first time, but it turned out that he was completely overthinking it. She gave him enough face in front of his parents and coaxed them so much that the two elders couldn't help smiling. Her straightforwardness won her parents' favor, and the meal was filled with a relaxed and happy atmosphere. When the two were leaving, Dao Yulian gave them a small cake she had made, and pulled Song Yuan aside to tell him, "Song Yuan, I won't ask you anything today. Come back and explain to me what happened when you have the chance. Go back and live a good life with your wife. I like this girl, so treat her well." "Mom, I will. Don't worry." Song Yuan returned to the car, and Ji Yushiyu leaned. Lost consciousness in the passenger seat. The year her parents divorced, she was 8 years old and her brother was 4. Her parents each had their own families and neither of them cared about their children. They left the two siblings to be raised by their grandmother. She almost never felt the warmth from her parents. She had always thought that she didn't need that kind of family affection at all, until today when she followed Song Yuan back home, she found that the warmth moved her, and she suddenly felt a little envious of the man who had a flash marriage with her. Song Yuan didn't rush to start the car. He squeezed the juice he brought from home and handed it to Ji Yushiyu. "Thanks." He was not good at expressing himself, and he could not say much more. He thanked her for marrying him with only a few days left in the wedding countdown, and for giving him enough face in front of her parents. Ji Yushiyu curled his lips. "There's nothing to thank me for. I may need you to cooperate with me to go home in the future. My grandma is not easy to deal with." Song Yuan didn't think too much about it. If she treated his family sincerely, then he would naturally treat her family sincerely as well. He turned on the navigation and drove to the address Ji Yushiyu sent him. He felt warm in his heart at the thought of starting their cohabitation life. Chapter 19. He is a top hacker. The car drove directly into the Four Seasons Genting community. Song Yuan knew that Ji Yushiyu had a house in Beijing, but he didn't expect that the community where her house was located was so good. He had great respect for this girl who worked hard on her own in Beijing. It was not easy for her to buy a house like this on her own in a place where every inch of land was valuable. He thought of Lin Shuiyao again in a trance. She never worked hard herself, but only encouraged him to work hard and do things like a slave to give her a good life. "Song Yuan, you must always remember that you have a girlfriend. You must work hard and save money to marry me. Song Yuan, I want a wedding house in the city center, no less than 100 square meters, otherwise my mother will not agree to let me marry you. Song Yuan, you have to prepare 500,000 yuan for the betrothal gift, as well as money for jewelry, clothes, and gifts for my relatives. Don't let me lose face in front of my relatives." These were Lin Shuiyao's original words. Song Yuan just wanted to laugh when he thought about them now. Could it be that Lin Shuiyao was still fantasizing that he would beg her to marry him in 4 days? Song Yuan snorted in his heart. He has always been emotionally stable and would not argue with a woman, as that would make him lose face. Even if Ji Yushiyu wasn't there, he wouldn't go back to her. Song Yuan parked the car, carried the things he brought from his parents' house and his own suitcase, and walked towards the apartment building with Ji Yushiyu. After walking a few steps, Ji Yushiyu stretched out a hand towards him. Song Yuan's mind was suddenly confused and he didn't understand her intention. Did she mean to hold hands? Song Yuan put the handbag in his other hand and put it together with the suitcase. He held her hand with his free hand. The delicate and soft touch in his palm made his heart skip a beat, and his mind inappropriately recalled the chaos of that night. It was this restless little hand that unbuckled his belt, moved down along his abdominal muscles, grabbed it randomly, and was so unfamiliar with its movements that it didn't know what to do next. Song Yuan felt his throat tighten and his blood rushed. He was glad that he wore loose pants today. It was nighttime and she wouldn't notice his embarrassment. Ji Shiu was held by him and her steps suddenly paused. She just saw that he had a lot of things in his hands and wanted to help him share some of the burden, but she didn't expect that he would misunderstand her. But pulling her hand away at this point would make both of them awkward, so she didn't explain and let him hold her hand like this. Ji Shiu was observing Song Yuan from the side. The tall man was half a step faster than her and holding her hand. In this night, he gave her an inexplicable sense of security. She has taken over the GU group for 3 years and has never relied on anyone since she was a child. Everyone in the business world knows that she is ruthless and gives her the nickname, the female devil. No one knows that in the dead of night, she also needs a shoulder to lean on. It's just that she won't show her weak side in front of others. Ji Shiu silently thought that maybe a quick marriage with this man wouldn't be a bad idea. The two walked into their house holding hands. Like Song Yuan, Ji Shiu was also visiting this house for the first time, but she asked her assistant Xu Li to make arrangements in advance. All the daily necessities for their household were prepared, and her daily necessities were also moved in. Song Yuan finally let go of her hand and found 2 pairs of slippers in the shoe cabinet. While changing his shoes, he asked her, "Where do I put my stuff?" The subtext was to ask her how she was going to sleep tonight. After all, the two of them were not familiar with each other yet. Before Song Yuan moved in with her, he should ask the girl what she thought. Ji Shiu was confused by the question and raised his hand to point randomly. "Put it in the master bedroom first, and then you can put it there yourself." She didn't know which room the master bedroom was, and if she told anyone else it would be exposed. After changing his shoes, Song Yuan carried his suitcase and walked towards the direction Ji Shiu pointed, looking around the house. It was a square apartment with a master bedroom, a guest bedroom, and another one used as a study. She told him to put it in the master bedroom, so that means they should sleep together at night, right? Song Yuan felt his heartbeat speeding up, but then he changed his mind and realized that they were already legal, so it was normal for them to do anything, not to mention sleeping in the same room. It's just that others fall in love first and then get married, but they get the order reversed, getting married first and then falling in love. Ji Shiu stared at his back in a daze. The phone in her bag rang. She picked it up and heard Xu Li's anxious voice. "Boss Ji, something has happened. Our company's intranet has been attacked again. They haven't cracked the core data yet, but at this rate it will only take 2 hours. If the finance department's files are leaked, then, that would be a big deal." Ji Shiu's expression became solemn. Recently, Gu's company was preparing to enter the real estate industry, which had affected many people's interests. She could roughly guess who wanted to bring down Gu's company. Since she has decided to do it, she has nothing to be afraid of. But she didn't expect the other party to use such shady means. Since she couldn't produce any evidence, she had no reason to attack the other party. The important thing right now is to protect the company's network so that the group's core data and various confidential documents cannot be made public. Ji Shiu asked. "What is the company's security department doing?" "Boss Ji, all the employees in the security department have been called back to work overtime. The person who came this time is a master, and no one can deal with him at the moment. It would be easy if we could find the hacker James, but James is just an English name, no one knows his real name, let alone his contact information." Ji Shiu rubbed her brows and hung up the phone. After a few seconds, she called her useless brother. "Yuan, if you know any hackers, please help me push one. The company's intranet has been attacked." Ji Shiu's tone was surprised. "No way, sister. Today is the night you get your marriage certificate, and you really left your brother-in-law to go to work. Stop talking nonsense and hurry up." Ji Shiuan was suppressed by his sister's bloodline since he was a child. When she yelled, he became obedient. "Okay, don't worry, I know a little bit, let me see what's going on first." Ji Shiu hung up the phone and went straight into the study. In the master bedroom, Song Yuan hung his clothes in the cloakroom. He didn't expect Ji Shiu to be so thoughtful and leave a special. A wardrobe. Looking at his black, gray and white clothes side by side with her light-colored dress, he felt a special warmth in his heart. On the phone, Ji Yuan from the three-person group sent a message. I'm dying of laughter. As expected, I guessed it right. My sister left my brother-in-law behind to go to work on her wedding night. I feel sorry for my brother-in-law for a second, har ha har har. Song Yuan put away his phone and walked out of the master bedroom. When he passed by the study, he heard Ji Yushiu talking on the phone. He vaguely heard some sensitive words, such as hacker and attack. The door of the study was open, and Ji Yushiu looked anxious, as if he was in trouble. Song Yuan stopped and waited for her to hang up the phone and asked, "Were you attacked by hackers?" Ji Yushiu hummed with a dejected look. Song Yuan took out his computer. "If you don't mind, let me try." Ji Yushiu's eyelids twitched. She almost forgot that the person next to her was also a top student who graduated with a degree in computer science. Chapter 20. Sitting on his legs. Ji Yushiu watched Song Yuan calmly turn on the computer and asked, "Do you understand cybersecurity?" Song Yuan would not reveal his hacker identity to anyone. This was the rule of their industry. He replied, "A little bit." Seeing the stars lighting up in Ji Yushiu's eyes, he still held back and said nothing. He would not let her down. In this circle, he has never met a hacker who can be regarded as his rival, and the problems she encountered were just things that he could solve easily. Song Yuan typed quickly on the keyboard with both hands, and the code on the screen scrolled line by line. After a few minutes, the homepage of the company's intranet was restored, and then the sub-pages of the internet were restored one by one. Ji Yushiu stood behind him, looking at the magical codes and the restored pages on the computer screen, and felt a little more admiration for Song Yuan. She was born at the top of the pyramid, and was raised as an heir by her grandmother. She grew up with excellence all the way. For the first time, she sincerely admired a person who was indeed capable of making his own game. Ji Yushiu had a strong premonition that this man would definitely achieve success in his professional field. While Ji Yushiu was praising him, he also cursed his useless brother in his heart. If I remember correctly, Song Yuan and Ji Yushiu were classmates in the same school. In comparison, her younger brother seemed a bit clueless. It took Song Yuan no more than a quarter of an hour to help Gu's company restore its internal network. After completing all the tasks, he wanted to ask her if she wanted him to help her build a firewall. Song Yuan didn't expect that she was standing so close behind him. When he turned around, a few strands of Ji Yushiu's hair fell beside his ears, and her forehead brushed her chin. Both of them were stunned. Song Yuan paused for a moment, and his nostrils were filled with the pleasant smell of her body, the same as that night, fresh with a faint sweetness, not like the vulgar smell of ordinary cosmetics or perfume, but more like her body odor. Song Yuan had tasted the sweetness and knew how intoxicating the taste was. The sudden skin contact inevitably made him think of something else. He raised his eyes to look at her, and their gazes met, neither of them dodged, and there was a moment of ambiguity in the study. Song Yuan first broke the silence and called her in a low voice. "Shiyu, it's fixed. Do you want to come over and take a look?" Ji Yushiu regained his composure and stood up. Look. There was only one chair in the study, and Song Yuan had no intention of getting up. When their eyes met again, Song Yuan did not hesitate. He took her hand and put her on his lap, guiding her right hand to operate the mouse. He soon regretted it, as he found that he couldn't concentrate on doing anything this way. He could feel that Ji Yushiu, who was sitting on his lap, was obviously too stiff to move. Song Yuan's heart was pounding when he saw her red ears. His eyes accidentally swept over that slender waist. He could hold it with one big hand, but the woman's flesh grew to the right place. The proud waist-to-hip ratio reminded him of the night when he held her slender waist from behind and bumped into her. Song Yuan forced himself to pull his thoughts back. If he continued to recall, he couldn't guarantee what would happen next. Time language. He called softly. Ji Yushiu, who was placed on his lap, felt like an acupoint was pressed. She didn't expect Song Yuan to suddenly pull her onto his lap. She has had a cold personality since childhood and has never been so close to her closest grandmother, let alone other people, but it is undeniable that she does not hate close contact with this man. The two had a flash marriage, and were obviously not close enough to the point where they could sit on each other's laps and flirt. Ji Yushiu calmed her breathing and felt Song Yuan's breath on the back of her head. Her mind, which was usually calm and self-controlled, was a mess. Song Yuan held her hand and operated the mouse together to open Gu's intranet. All their web pages had been restored. He clicked on each entrance one by one and checked the whole thing. Gu Shiu was completely shocked. The problem that dozens of employees in the security department of the GU group could not solve was solved by Song Yuan in just over 10 minutes. Is this man a god? You, so fast. Song Yuan curled his lower lip at an angle that she couldn't see. How could he use the word fast to describe a man? I'll teach her to use a different word some other day. Song Yuan originally wanted to build a stronger firewall to prevent hackers from invading again, but when he saw her admiring eyes, a selfish idea came to his mind. After being isolated from the danger forever, would she still come to him for help? Obviously, he would not agree to that. He wanted to leave himself a chance. This was also a small opportunity for them to get to know each other. Song Yuan did not mention the firewall again. Anyway, no matter who attacked, he could protect her. He replied meaningfully. You don't like speed, so I'll go slower next time. Gu Shiu suddenly turned around and stared at him with her deer eyes. Song Yuan, be serious. Song Yuan looked at her red ears and tried to hold back his smile. He didn't expect that she could be so cute when she was angry, which was in stark contrast to her usual cold and elegant appearance. Song Yuan put away his joking expression, but he was still teasing her. What's wrong with me? Gu Shiu's eyebrows slightly frowned, and her cheeks turned red, but she was speechless when he asked her back. Song Yuan wanted to take a picture of her current appearance and send it to her WeChat. She was really cute. Song Yuan did not embarrass her anymore and put one hand on her waist. Shiyu, do you work in Gu's security department? Gu Shiu didn't expect him to ask about her job. She nodded as he asked. Yes, I'm the head of the security department. There are dozens of people in the department who are all idiots. The hacker intrusion has been going on for a while, and no one can solve the problem. Our president is almost dying of anxiety. Song Yuan looked into her eyes and said, next time you encounter a problem, remember to come to me and I will help you solve it. Gu Shiu thought that the company had been trying to find the hacker James recently. Maybe Song Yuan, an expert, knew about it. She raised her lips and asked, you know the top hacker James? Song Yuan's heartbeat suddenly stopped. What do you want to do with hacker James? Our company has been targeted by a hacker. They hired a hacker this time, but they might hire someone more powerful to attack the company's network next time. You don't always have time to help me deal with it. In order to prevent any problems, it's safer to invite James to the company. If you know him, you can pass on a message to me. Our president has said that if we can invite James, he can set any conditions. Song Yuan was silent. Shiyu, I don't know James. He saw Gu Shiu's eyes dimmed, and felt a little reluctant. Shiyu, your matter has top priority for me. You can come to me at any time. As he spoke, he held her and moved forward, almost sitting on his legs. It's getting late, do you want to rest? Chapter 22. Ask him. Song Yuan didn't want to speak too directly and embarrass everyone. After all, the window paper had not been broken yet. He paused for a few seconds and replied. Yuan, my wedding is in 3 days, remember to come then. Yuan was stunned for a moment. She saw Lin Shuya downstairs in the company yesterday and heard from her colleagues about their breakup. Only today did she and Wang Jinsai take the initiative to come and find Song Yuan. She finally mustered up the courage to speak out her true feelings, but she didn't expect to be hit head-on. Wedding, he wants to have a wedding. Yuan was stunned for a long time. Sister-in-law, who is your sister-in-law? Song Yuan replied. You haven't seen it, you will know when you come. The light in Yuan's eyes dimmed. She was glad that she didn't say it explicitly just now, leaving herself a little way out. However, this incident was a great blow to her, and she felt emotionally depressed for a while. She tried to hide her emotions. The company's website has not been completely repaired yet. Wang Jinsai is as anxious as a dog now. He may come to harass you again. If you find it annoying, you can block his number. After a pause, she continued. I'm going back first. I'll be at the wedding in 3 days. Yuan turned around and was about to leave, but Song Yuan stopped her and took a bottle of Coke from the car and stuffed it into her hand. Everyone in the team was recruited by me after an interview. Wang Jinsai will not affect my working relationship with you. If you encounter difficulties at work, just come to me. Yuan nodded and left. Song Yuan stood there in silence for a few seconds and then walked into the office. Lu Kai and Yuan had already started their day's work. When Lu Kai saw him coming in, he looked at him with a curious look. "Old Song, how was your day yesterday? Do you want me to order you some roasted kidneys to replenish your body?" Yuan sighed. "Brother Lu, didn't you read the message in the group? Senior brother Song wants to save his first time for the wedding day." Lu Kai nodded. "That's right. This is quite memorable. It's the first time, so we must take it seriously. Do you want to do some homework in advance and make it a romantic and unforgettable night?" Yuan snapped his fingers. "I have a lot of say in this matter, senior brother Song. I will be your planner, leave this matter to me." Song Yuan didn't reply, thinking, how could this be the first time between them? If you really want to count, this might be the sixth time, as they did it 5 times that night. In the morning, the three of them held a small meeting. Song Yuan assigned part of the work to Yuan to review the logic of the game currently being developed. Next, they would need to recruit a senior designer to design the game's UI, and a test engineer to report bugs. You can look for financing by optimizing the existing demo. Song Yuan and Lu Kai are confident in their game. They rejected the lump sum price of 30 million and will definitely increase the value of this game by 10 or even 100 times its market value. Song Yuan finished today's work ahead of schedule. He had been busy preparing for the wedding these days, so the job of recruiting was left to Lu Kai. Song Yuan left work 2 hours early in the afternoon. He made an appointment with the jewelry store to pick up the ring in the afternoon. As soon as he went out, he saw someone he didn't want to see. Wang Jinsai, with a bulging belly, looked at him with a flattering face. "Xiao Song, let's talk." Song Yuan brushed past his shoulder and walked by. "Sorry, I'm busy and don't have time." Wang Jinsai trotted a few steps to catch up with Song Yuan. "Xiao Song, don't be impatient. Just listen to me and you'll know whether you have time to talk or not. This time the company has given me the power. As long as you come back and fix the loopholes on the website, you can set any conditions. It's not a problem to give you some of the original shares." Wang Jinsai was short, less than 1.7 meters tall, and his short legs could only barely keep up with Song Yuan's pace by jogging. "Why do people work? Isn't it to make money? When you come back this time, the HR department will redraft your contract, doubling your salary, adding stocks and project dividends. If you add all this up, the money you earn in a year can pay a down payment on a house in the 3rd Ring Road. Isn't this better than starting your own business?" Wang Jinsai used all his eloquence to the point of being dry-mouthed, but Song Yuan only said one thing in response to him. "Sorry, not interested." Wang Jinsai wiped the sweat from his forehead and almost knelt down. His attitude was as humble as dust. "Xiao Song, don't refuse yet. Think about it carefully. Work is not a trivial matter. It is related to your future. Think about your family and your fiancé. Don't you want to give them a better life?" As they were talking, the two had already walked to the parking lot. Song Yuan took out the car key to unlock the car. Seeing that he was unmoved, Wang Jinsai became furious. If he could not invite this great Buddha, Song Yuan, back, his job would be in jeopardy. He risked his own face. "Xiao Song, I know you are angry. I had a bad attitude that day and said something wrong. Now I solemnly apologize to you. After all, we have been colleagues for 3 years. For the sake of our friendship over the past 3 years, please don't hold it against me, okay?" Song Yuan opened the car door and got in. Wang Jinsai startled and stuck his legs on the door, hoping that he would reconsider. Song Yuan raised his eyelids and glanced at him speechlessly. "Boss Wang, I'm in a hurry." Wang Jinsai was so anxious that he scratched his head. He even rubbed his face on the ground, but he didn't expect Song Yuan to really not give him any face at all. He regrets it very much now. He listened to Xiao Nianqin's instigation that day. He never thought that the layoffs would affect his major arteries and ruin his career. He now hates that guy named Xiao. What kind of Mr. Wang is he? Now in front of Song Yuan, he is more like a cuckold, just short of getting down on his knees to perform for him. "Mr. Song, would you please reconsider this? Our company cannot do without shareholders like you. If you come back, you will be the backbone of our company. The leaders above all attach great importance to this project, and the dividends at the end of the year will not be small. Song Yuan only felt a noise in his ears. He looked at his wrist. He closed the car door while Wang Jinsai wasn't paying attention, started the car and sprayed exhaust gas all over Wang Jinsai's face. Wang Jinsai stood there watching the car drive away, feeling extremely panicked. How would he explain this to his boss when he got back? If their website is not repaired one day, the transaction volume will be delayed by millions. This is a burden he cannot bear. Wang Jinsai was overwhelmed when he thought about the monthly mortgage and car loans, his wife's handbags, the high tuition fees for his son's aristocratic school, and the expenses for his parents' nursing home. If he can't find Song Yuan, his world will fall apart. Chapter 23. The dog man is avoiding her. Song Yuan drove to the agreed jewelry store. He had brought Lin Shueyao here before to try on rings, but he didn't want the one he wanted to buy at that time, so he chose the most expensive diamond ring in the store. The employee who received him looked familiar with him. When he heard that he wanted to buy the most expensive item, he smiled. "Mr. Song, you have a good eye. This is the treasure of our store. Miss Lin is really lucky to have a husband who loves her like you." Song Yuan snorted and said that Miss Lin was not worthy. "My wife's surname is Jiu. Please help me pack it up nicely. I'll pay by credit card." The salesgirl realized that she had talked too much and her expression froze for a moment before she dared to continue. Song Yuan didn't have much savings in his card, so he used his credit card to pay. After selling the house in a few days, he had enough money and could still afford a ring. He wanted to give Ji Yushiu the best. She deserved better than Lin Shueyao. Song Yuan put away the ring that the salesgirl had wrapped and went out. What he didn't know was that in the corner of the jewelry store, a pair of eyes were watching him leave. Xiaoxi is Lin Shueyao's best friend, so of course she would inform Lin Shueyao as soon as possible about this kind of thing. After Song Yuan left, she immediately called Lin Shueyao. "Yao Yao, guess who I met in the jewelry store?" "Who?" "Song Yuan. Your lickspittle is about to show off. I saw him swipe his card to buy the most expensive ring in the store. Just wait, he's going to propose to you soon, don't agree too quickly Tilder." Lin Shueyao chuckled on the other end of the phone. "There are still 3 days before the wedding, and I knew he was anxious. But Song Yuan has completely pissed me off, and I won't forgive him that easily." Xiaoxi encouraged her. "Yes, you must set some rules for him this time. Otherwise, he will know that you have a bad temper and will definitely control you in the future. If a tiger doesn't show its might, he will treat you as a lakati." Lin Shueyao was so touched that she sniffed. "I know, baby, you are the only one who treats me well and truly considers me from my perspective. Of course. I'm your best friend after all. Send me Song Yuan's number and I'll help you get a hold of him." After hanging up the phone, Lin Shueyao didn't think much about it and sent Song Yuan's phone number to Xiaoxi. After sending the number, she sat at her workstation in a daze. Xiao Nianchen had been out of contact for several days. She also suspected that the bastard was avoiding her. But soon, she overturned her thoughts. She remembered how Xiao Nianchen looked when he was in love with her. He was so sincere, he almost took out his heart to show her and would not lie to her. Soon, she thought of Song Yuan again, that blockhead who couldn't coax people, who wouldn't give gifts when she bought them, who would come to pick people up and then drop them off, who couldn't say nice things when she apologized, and now that he had bought a ring, he didn't know where to choose to propose to her. Thinking of this, Lin Shueyao felt a little bit of anticipation in her heart. If Song Yuan could design the proposal ceremony to be more touching and romantic, choose the 3-star Michelin restaurant in the CBD as the venue, and buy a bouquet of 99 roses, she might consider forgiving him. Lin Shueyao had already begun to imagine how Song Yuan would propose to her. Although that man was not good at coaxing his girlfriend, at least he was good looking. She had a feeling that Song Yuan would appear downstairs in the Hengyue building in a while. Lin Shueyao charged her phone, took out a small mirror from the drawer to touch up her makeup, and the team leader called her from behind. "Lin Shueyao, Mr. Gu's meeting is about to start. Bring your computer and recorder to take notes." Lin Shueyao immediately put down her lipstick and rushed to the meeting room on the top floor with her tools. She didn't dare to challenge the authority of the female devil. If she was late for 1 minute, the female devil could kick her out. In the conference room, all the participants have arrived. Ji Yushiu walked in with his assistant. The atmosphere in the conference room immediately became heavy and oppressive. Jiu is planning to enter the real estate industry and recently purchased a piece of land in the northern suburbs to build a resort. Manager Shu, who was in charge of the project, began to explain the three plans proposed by their department. After he finished explaining the first two, Jiu criticized them as nothing. When Manager Shu talked about the third plan, the cell phone on the conference table started to ring. The people sitting around the conference table didn't dare to speak. Their cell phones were all on silent mode during the meeting. Their evil female CEO hated having meetings interrupted the most, and no one dared to offend her. Normally, Jiu would not answer the phone during a meeting, but today she glanced at her phone, made a pause gesture, picked up the phone and walked out of the meeting room. Everyone in the room looked at each other, and no one knew what had happened. Some people gossiped quietly. Did I see it wrong? Mr. Jiu seemed to smile just now. You're not mistaken. I feel like Mr. Jiu has been a little different these past 2 days, but I can't really put my finger on what's different. He seems a little more humane. Could it be that Ms. Jiu is in a relationship? Otherwise, I can't think of anyone else's phone call that would make her interrupt the meeting and go out to answer it. Yes. Outside the door, Jiu received a call from Song Yuan. Wait for me for 15 minutes. If you're bored, go have a cup of coffee. I still have some work to do, so I'll get it done as soon as possible. Song Yuan asked her yesterday, and she said she didn't have to work overtime today, so he drove over to pick her up after get off work. No rush, come downstairs after you finish your work. I brought my computer and will write some code in the car. Jiu is a person who pays the most attention to time concept. She doesn't like waiting for others, nor does she like being waited for by others. Her good upbringing since childhood made her feel guilty about wasting other people's time. When she heard that Song Yuan could write code in the car, she felt less guilty. Then you have a need. She wanted to call her assistant Shuli if she needed anything, and Shuli could help him arrange it, but when she thought about the fact that her identity as the president had not been revealed to him, her persona was just that of a team leader in the security department. I swallowed the rest of the words back into my stomach. After hanging up the phone, Jiu returned to the conference room and everyone's mouths automatically shut. Jiu looked at his watch. The final plan must be presented within 10 minutes, and any nonsense not related to the plan must be held back. Manager Shu thought quickly and extracted the core of the plan, but the final plan was still rejected by Jiu. 15 minutes later, Jiu stepped out of the president's special elevator, and her light beige high heels made a crisp sound when stepping on the floor. The staff passing by the hall greeted her and Jiu nodded in response. After leaving the building, she saw Song Yuan's car parked next to the green belt on the side of the road. Jiu walked over, opened the passenger door and got in. She threw her bag on the back seat, leaned back to relax, and cleared her mind, leaving all the work behind. She abandoned her multi-million-dollar luxury car and got into Song Yuan's small car worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, but she felt more relaxed than ever before. Jiu found that she was most relaxed when she was with the man in front of her. Chapter 24. She saw a woman sitting in Song Yuan's passenger seat. Song Yuan unscrewed a bottle of water and handed it to Jiu. Are you hungry? What do you want to eat tonight? Jiu took a sip of water and replied to him. I want to eat outside. Let me think about it. Song Yuan received a friend request on WeChat on his mobile phone, with the note, I am Xiao Shi. It took Song Yuan a few seconds to remember that Xiao Shi was Lin Shui's stupid best friend. He ignored the message. Jiu thought of what to eat, and she sent an address to Song Yuan. This is a private restaurant. Their dishes are pretty good. Please find the navigation and we'll go there to eat. Song Yuan clicked on the address and was about to start the car when a call came in from an unfamiliar number. When the call was connected, the person on the other end called out, Brother Song Yuan. Song Yuan was stunned. Who are you? There was a hint of grievance in Xiao Shi's voice. Brother Song Yuan, can't you recognize my voice? I'm Xiao Shi. Song Yuan was a little speechless. She was still haunting him. What's up? It's nothing important, actually. My computer is broken, and I want you to help fix it. As a thank you, can I treat you to dinner tonight? If you don't mind, I'll buy the ingredients and cook at your house. If we can't repair it, go find an after-sales shop. Brother Song Yuan, are you a little bit repulsed by me because of Yao Yao? Yao Yao is already with Xiao Nianchen, so just pretend that you two didn't know each other before, but that doesn't prevent us from knowing each other. Song Yuan hung up the phone directly, started the car and drove to the address Gu Shiyu sent him. At that time, Lin Shuiyao just ran out of the building. She knew that Song Yuan would come to see her today. Sure enough, after the meeting, she saw his car parked on the side of the road through the floor-to-ceiling window upstairs. He was leaning against the car, looking up at the building where she worked. Considering that he was quite sincere today, Lin Shuiyao decided to pay attention to him. She hurriedly packed her bag, put on some lipstick and went downstairs. When she ran out of the building, she saw Song Yuan's car started. She ran a few steps, but Song Yuan seemed not to see her. Lin Shuiyao put her hands on her hips and cursed softly. Did Song Yuan go blind from writing code? She waved at him for a long time, but he didn't get out of the car to pick her up. A man without any tact shouldn't be treated kindly. Soon, Lin Shuiyao discovered that there was someone sitting in Song Yuan's passenger seat. Why was there someone sitting in his passenger seat? Lin Shuiyao's heart was beating wildly. She was angry. She could see that there was a woman sitting in the passenger seat. It's a pity that I couldn't see the woman's face clearly, but based on the half of her body that was exposed, I can judge that she is a woman with good temperament and extremely high taste. Lin Shuiyao's mind was suddenly in a mess. She recalled the time she spent with Song Yuan in the past. Song Yuan was almost defenseless against her and let her check his phone at will. She had doubted it before. After all, Song Yuan had excellent looks and a tall figure. Apart from the fact that he couldn't coax people, he was the type that all girls would like. She checked his cell phone and didn't find anything suspicious. Did he cheat on her before he broke up with her? Lin Shuiyao didn't believe it, but she couldn't stop thinking about it. How could the man who was devoted to her change his mind? Impossible. The woman sitting in his passenger seat must be a client. Lin Shuiyao took out her phone and called her best friend Xiaoxi. 11:11, I saw Song Yuan's car. There was a woman sitting in the passenger seat. I waved to him, but he didn't see me. I was so angry. What? Xiaoxi's voice was several decibels higher than Lin Shuiyao's, and she sounded even angrier. How could Song Yuan let another woman sit in his passenger seat? He is really arrogant. Yao Yao, I tell you, you must not forgive him. His behavior is pure bullying. You haven't even registered your marriage certificate with him, but he doesn't take you seriously. What about after you get married? Is he going to flaunt his mistress in public? You can't have a man like that. Lin Shuiyao was already feeling bad, and she felt even worse after hearing Xiaoxi's complaints. How could Song Yuan betray her? Impossible. She would rather believe that the earth would be destroyed than believe that Song Yuan had changed his mind about her. After hanging up the phone, she wiped her tears and looked at the memo on her phone. 3 days later was the big day for their wedding. She secretly called the hotel Song Yuan booked for the wedding, and the other party told her with certainty that the wedding had not been cancelled and would be held in 3 days. Only then did Lin Shuiyao feel relieved. Within these 3 days, Song Yuan must kneel down and beg her to be his bride, and then she must ask him to double the gift money, otherwise, she will not forgive him easily. On the other side, Song Yuan drove the car into an alley in the city center. Gu Shiyu took him into a courtyard. The environment in the courtyard was elegant, with light music playing and a plaque that read, Qin Yuan Private Kitchen. It is the most rare to find peace and quiet in a busy city. I believe that the people who come and go are people of taste. The proprietress seemed to be very familiar with Gu Shiyu and called her by her nickname. Shiyu hasn't been here for a while. Is she very busy recently? Gu Shiyu handed the menu to Song Yuan and asked him to look at it first. She exchanged pleasantries with the proprietress. It's a bit busy indeed, but I decided to devote some time to my life and reduce my working hours. The boss lady praised. That's right. There's no end to work. People always have to relax themselves appropriately. Otherwise, life would be so tiring. After that, she looked at Song Yuan with a curious look and asked. It's a rare occasion that Shiyu brings a member of the opposite sex here for the first time. Today, we have all the dishes you like. I will cook for you myself. Gu Shiyu curled her lower lip and warned. He doesn't eat cilantro, so don't put cilantro in it. Song Yuan suddenly looked up at her, his eyes full of surprise. He had only eaten at the same table with Gu Shiyu once, which was yesterday at home, and she actually noticed that he didn't eat coriander. Song Yuan. For some reason, I felt as if someone was gently touching my heart, and it started to beat violently. It seems that not all the chicken soup on the internet is poisonous. A good relationship is mutual, and cannot be maintained by one party alone. He and Lin Shuiyao have been together for 3 years, but Lin Shuiyao may not know all of his preferences. Someone who truly treats you will definitely let you feel it. If you can't feel it, it means he is treating you as a spare tire. Ji Yushiu was stunned by his gaze. She asked, "Am I right?" Song Yuan came back to his senses. "Yes, I don't like cilantro, but I'm not picky about anything else." Ji Yushiu curled her lips naturally. "It seems that my observation is correct. Do you have any other dishes you would like to eat?" "I'm not familiar with this place, do as you like." Ji Yushiu nodded, and asked the proprietress to order some blanched okra and braised short ribs. Song Yuan scratched his forehead with his index finger, and fireworks were crackling in his chest. The 2 dishes she added were both his favorites. How could a woman completely hit his spot? Is she a gift from God to him? Chapter 25 Legal Husband. The proprietress took the order and went to the backstage to work. In a few minutes, she brought out 2 glasses of iced watermelon juice and placed them on the table. She gave Ji Yushiu a look. "This set of couple cups is for you. I wish you a happy marriage soon." Ji Yushiu suddenly chuckled and raised her pretty eyebrows. "Sister Mai, let me introduce you. This is my legal husband, Song Yuan." The proprietress opened her eyes wide in shock. "Yes, the iron tree has finally blossomed. I was worried that you would ignore your personal problems and get bogged down in work. It seems that I was worrying too much." The proprietress greeted Song Yuan and left the couple alone. Ji Yushiu started playing with her cell phone, but Song Yuan was immersed in her calling him husband. Her voice was clear and those 2 words sounded particularly nice coming from her mouth. If there hadn't been a third person, Sister Mai, present, he would even have suspected that this woman was deliberately flirting with him. After the 2 of them finished their meal, Sister Mai cleaned the pair of couple cups, packed them up and gave them to them. Ji Yushiu didn't hesitate and took the handbag directly. It was already dusk when I came out of the courtyard. There was a crescent moon hanging in the sky and a few stars could be seen sporadically. The 2 walked out side by side. The wind blew at night, lifting the hem of Ji Yushiu's skirt and brushing against Song Yuan's calves from time to time. The young couple, who had just received their marriage certificate on the 2nd day, were not familiar with each other yet and had little to say to each other. Fortunately, it was dark now so it wouldn't be awkward. When they were about to walk out of the cobblestone path, Ji Yushiu suddenly slipped and almost couldn't stand in her high heels. Fortunately, Song Yuan was quick to grab her slender waist. "Shiyu, is your foot okay?" Ji Yushiu supported Song Yuan with one arm, lifted one leg lightly and staggered forward a few steps to walk out of the path. After slowing down, she tried to stand up on her own. Song Yuan was worried, so he put one hand next to her, ready to catch her. Ji Yushiu sighed. "My foot seems to be fine, but my shoe is broken." She lifted her right leg and found that her heel was sprained. There was still some distance to the parking lot. Song Yuan was silent for a few seconds before he spoke. "Then, shall I carry you over?" Ji Yushiu raised her head and looked at him, her beautiful eyes reflecting the stars. "No, no. Just hold on to me a little. I can walk on my toes." Song Yuan didn't say anything else and just picked her up. She was slender and it was almost effortless for him to hold her. "Shiyu, don't be polite with your husband." When he said the word husband, Ji Yushiyu's body stiffened noticeably. Unlike when he introduced her to others in the store just now, now there were only the 2 of them. Ji Yushiu clutched his shirt with both hands. The night was too quiet. Song Yuan could hear her breathing, and soon their hearts were beating at the same rhythm. Anything more at this point would seem redundant. Song Yuan held her in his arms and walked all their way to the car. It was a journey of several minutes, and even though he deliberately slowed down his pace, they still arrived quickly. Song Yuan put the person down gently and got into the car. Her body temperature seemed to still remain in his palms. He calmed himself down and prepared to start the car to go home. He glanced over and saw Ji Yushiu with his head down in a daze, his ears red, and he didn't know what he was thinking. "Did that hacker cause you any trouble later?" Ji Yushiu was concentrating on answering. "No. Next time you get into trouble, remember to come to me. Ji Yushiu hummed, I won't be polite with you. Song Yuan chuckled softly, he was quite obedient. He touched his trouser pocket. I'll give you something when I get back. Ji Yushiu turned to look at him. What? Song Yuan didn't say anything and kept it secret for the time being. The car drove back to the community, and Song Yuan directly carried Ji Yushiu down from the passenger seat. After the previous ride, he seemed more skilled this time. Ji Yushiu did not refuse again and put her arms around his neck. The relationship between the two gradually became natural, and each of them put themselves in the role of the others. There was a photo attached below the information. Song Yuan clicked on the picture to enlarge it. Wow! There's a hunk on the cover, wearing. Well, he looked down at himself. He had a good figure. He didn't need to wear such a thing. Are you here to seduce your wife? Soon Ji Yushiuan sent another message. There is also an aromatherapy diffuser. Remember to light it up after taking a shower. I heard that most people get intoxicated after smelling it. Hee, no need to thank me. Sly smile. Song Yuan rubbed his brows. His junior brother was really a playboy. What bad ideas did he come up with? This was all. Chapter 27. He is a man, not a saint. Ji Yushiu's cheeks turned slightly red. She didn't have Alzheimer's, so how could she not know what he was talking about? However, they were not familiar with each other yet. Even though they could say it easily when introducing each other to others, now that there were only the two of them, it was a little difficult for them to say those two words. Ji Yushiu is a very influential person in the business world, and it is rare for him to be speechless like he is now. You are busy, I will go to wash and sleep. Ji Yushiu left in a hurry holding the computer, feeling like he was running away. Shy women are the cutest. Song Yuan looked at her back and curled his lips. He returned to his desk to work again. As soon as his hands touched the keyboard, he sneezed twice in succession. What he didn't know was that someone was scolding him right now. Moon Lake Bay. Lin Shuya failed to raise the money within the agreed time, so the Lin couple and their son went to look for her. Lin Hai put his hands behind his back and paced back and forth on the ground anxiously. Yao, what do you mean? You promised to give your brother the betrothal money, but the 2 dates for the meeting have come and you haven't paid the money. Now they don't want to marry us, and your brother can't find a wife. Are you happy? Lin Shuya felt sorry for her brother, but she felt very wronged by the scolding. Dad, I was careless about this matter, but I didn't mean to refuse to take the money. It was Song Yuan who was angry with me. Wang Chunmai sat on the sofa and slapped her thigh angrily. This is outrageous. This Song Yuan is really outrageous. He is a son-in-law who has not yet married into the family. Who dares to throw a tantrum? They are about to get married, and I think he doesn't want to get married. Lin Yu sat aside and finished off the attack. Song Yuan was still scolding me on the phone the day before yesterday, and my sister didn't say anything. She just turned her elbow outward and sided with an outsider. She didn't even treat me as her own brother. Wang Chunmai got anxious when she heard this. What? Song Yuan dares to scold my son. Lin Shuayao, let me tell you, Song Yuan has no chance of marrying my daughter. Unless he gets $1,000,000 as a gift and transfers their house to your brother, he can forget about it. A toad wants to eat swan meat, and wants to come to my house to get something for nothing. No way. Lin Shuaya was scolded like this, and even the most patient person couldn't put on a good face. Dad, Mom, please stop forcing me. Don't I know who Song Yuan is? He has only been making trouble for the past few days. I called the hotel where the wedding was held, and they said that the wedding in 3 days will go on as usual. He will come back to beg me. I'll just give him a lecture when the time comes. Lin Hai's eyes shone as he looked towards Lin Shuayao. Is a few words of scolding enough? If apologizing alone is enough after making a mistake, what do we need the police for? Your mother is right, this house will be transferred to your brother first. If Song Yuan still wants to get married, let him bring the betrothal gift to talk to me. After saying this, Lin Hai looked around the house. Pack up the things in the master bedroom and give the room to your brother. Your mother and I will sleep in the second bedroom. Clear out all the things in the study room and find a decoration company to make a study table. It will be your nephew's baby room in the future. Lin Shuaya felt a pang in her heart. There were 3 rooms in total, which were clearly arranged by her father. Even her nephew, who was nowhere to be seen, had a room, but she didn't. "Dad, where do I live?" Wang Chunmai took over and said. "As a girl, why do you have a room in your parents' house? When you get married, you will live in your husband's house. Don't Song Yuan's family prepare a house for their daughter-in-law?" Lin Shuiyao's eyes were moist. She thought that if their house was given to her younger brother, at least a room would be left for her. It turned out that this was how her parents arranged it. "I'm not married yet, so I don't need to sleep now." Lin Yu was tired of listening to this for a long time. "Oh, sister, why are you so nagging? Isn't the balcony a big place? You can sleep on the balcony first. You will be married in 2 days. Don't cause trouble for the family. We have been upset enough these days. If you had transferred the money earlier, would all these things have happened?" As Wang Chunmai was talking, she went to the master bedroom to move some things. "Okay, stop talking. You are the elder sister, and you should be more sensible as an elder sister. Don't cause trouble for the family. It is your responsibility to help your younger brother. We are here this time, and we will not leave. Now that your brother has a house under his name, it will be easier for him to find a wife. Your third aunt has introduced a girl to your brother. Let the girl come to this house for a blind date at noon tomorrow." Lin Shuya felt aggrieved, but she thought that this was her own brother. If she didn't help him, her parents would not be able to support him with their limited abilities. No girl would be willing to marry him, a young man without a proper job. Forget it, let us wait until Lin Yu finishes the blind date first. Thinking of this, she endured it and spent the night on the sofa. She really wanted to call Song Yuan and ask him to pick her up right now, but thinking of Song Yuan's recent cold violence towards her, she warned herself, "Lin Shuiyao, you lose if you bow your head first." She absolutely cannot bow her head first, otherwise Song Yuan will control her for the rest of her life. On the other side, Song Yuan worked until midnight, took a quick shower and returned to the bedroom. Ji Yushiu had already slept on the big bed and left a wall lamp on for him. Song Yuan was afraid of waking her up, so he walked into the room quickly, gently lifted the quilt and lay down. Just as he was about to turn off the lights, Ji Yushiu rolled over into his arms. She didn't know what she dreamed about. In the dream, it seemed like she was scolding someone. If you listened carefully, she was scolding her younger brother. "Don't call me sister, I don't have a brother as stupid as you." After cursing, Ji Yushiu raised her hands and put her arms around Song Yuan's waist, using him as a pillow. Song Yuan held his breath and his heart beat a little faster for a moment. She was sleeping soundly, her sweet and soft body pressed against his waist. She seemed defenseless against him. She was completely naked under her suspender pajamas, and one of the shoulder straps had fallen down, revealing the scenery inside. Song Yuan is a man, not a saint. He rolled his throat several times and called her in a hoarse voice. Time language. Ji Yushiu's eyebrows moved. When she heard Song Yuan's voice, she opened her hazy eyes and said in a soft voice, "Song Yuan, what are you doing? Still not asleep?" Song Yuan looked down at their bodies pressed together and asked her, "How can I sleep like this?" Ji Yushiu's mind became a little clearer, and she quickly withdrew her hand. Her pajamas fell down a little because of her action, and that touch of spring beauty was completely exposed to Song Yuan's sight. Song Yuan turned over and chased after her, kissing her lips, deepening the kiss little by little. The force of the hands was sometimes heavy, sometimes light. Ji Yushiu groaned, and his eyes were covered with a layer of mist. After a few seconds, she responded to his kiss little by little, and Song Yuan deepened his kiss on her.